All right, tonight our live episode of Death Metal Podcast is going to be live with Impetigo, Stevo from Impetigo. So tonight we're going to dive down the rabbit hole of one of the earliest horror death metal bands, in my opinion. So here we are, Death Metal Podcast. How's it going, everybody? As I had mentioned before, wanted to try to move towards interviews versus doing playing music. So, we're going to talk to Stevo from Impetigo, who is a pioneer of the death metal scene. And the band had a short career, but are still influencing and still known, and their songs very well known, in my opinion. We have the man backstage, but what we're going to do tonight is we're going to interview Stevo and talk about the history of the band. We're going to talk about Stevo's artwork, his other bands that he was in, and then we'll talk about some of the other members of Impetigo. And we're going to talk about old shows and a lot of history that has to do with Impetigo. And I even have a third host, a second host, that he's going to bring on to us, probably the horror side of things. So we wanted to flip the script on Stevo and not just come with just music, but talk maybe about some horror. Because this Death Metal Podcast, I'm addicted not only to death metal stuff, but also to extreme horror. and Impetigo stuff was all about, deep subject matter as far as cannibal movies and horrific Ruggero Deodato films and etc. So backstage we have the man Stevo. Welcome to Death Metal Podcast. How's it going, Stevo?
What's happening, brother?
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you joining the show. Let's say what's up to our viewers of Death Metal Podcast. How's it going, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. Evan Williams, Tactical Billy, Vacuous Steps, Bob Kelly. Thank you, Laura Squirrel, Scott, Alexis, Richard Santos, Luigi. Yes, no way. This is it, man. This is it. Stevo from Impetigo is in the house. And also, I have a special co-host tonight. Doc Holocausto is going to be my special co-host on tonight's episode of Death Metal Podcast.
What's up?
Hey, how's it going, Steve?
How you doing, brother?
I don't think I've ever heard your speaking voice before.
Oh, well.
So tonight is Death Metal Podcast. We're gonna touch not only onto Stevo's discography and Impetigo stuff. Impetigo. How do you say it, Stevo? What would you bring it?
However you pronounce it. I've heard it all different ways. I've heard Impetigo. I've heard Impetigo. It's whatever. I think it's just got to do with how you was brought up and how you
what side of the country you were from, right?
Yeah, there you go. And I think that if anyone's ever actually had it before, they got a right to call it whatever the fuck they want. So
yeah, exactly. A scratchy ass skin disease or something,
That's right.
The legend himself. Right. That's right. We have the legend himself, Stevo, from Impetigo. I say Impetigo, so if that's the way I usually would say it.
I always said Impetigo.
Impetigo? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if that's right or not.
Who came up with the name, Stevo? Where did that name come from?
So who did the name come from? So I gotta go in reverse a little bit. When Mark and I decided to start this horrifying teenage dance combo, we were originally called Slow Death because from the underground comics of the 70s and 80s, Slow Death was cool. It was also an Accused song, so there's all is fair in this game, and if you like a song by a band and want to call yourself that, there you go. That's fair game. And we liked the song. We were both Accused fans, and we actually kind of thought we were aspiring to sound kind of like The Accused at the time. So, we're like, okay.
I hear it in the vocal attack. I hear it a little,
exactly.
So there was another band you mentioned, too, on a different interview that you said influenced your vocals.
Slaughter, Accused, Septic Death.
It was a band on the Septic Death label.
Fratricide.
Fratricide,
yes,
exactly.
Yes,
and I went and checked out Fratricide afterwards, and I was like, I see.
Yeah, I love Fratricide. They did a lot of that. Yeah, and I was like,
which release from Fratricide was your influence? The early split or the full
at the time? At the time, they had recorded a 12-inch, which was supposed to come out Pussmort. Of course, we all had copies of it,
right?
And before it came out. And then they released the split 7-inch with Mission of Christ, another fantastic band. And I was like, oh, this sounds a lot different than the 12 inches coming out on Pussmort. And I wrote letters to Pusshead all the time. And I'm like, when is this Fratricide coming out? He'd be like, soon. And it never came out. And they had split up by the time a test pressing was even delivered.
Yeah, I think that's all that was made. So, it was a test pressing of something.
Yeah, so like and then around the same time as the bootleg copies of the advanced 12-inch came out, there was also a radio session that they did on Vancouver radio, I believe, that was singularly fantastic. So we were listening to a lot of stuff before we even ever had a copy of any of their stuff in our hands.
Because, let's talk about this. In the earliest days of death metal and music, of the music that we like, I mean, we had to communicate with each other through letters and the back of a magazine or a paragraph in Maximum Rock and Roll, or one line in the back of some weird fanzine or something. Is that how you first got your start into listening to more underground stuff?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, there's always some local bands around, and you go in the record store and find whatever you can. I mean, a lot of people, I think it's funny. There's some, you see threads on Reddit about bands like the Misfits and all that stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, what was it like listening to the Misfits in the 70s and 80s? And I tell you right now, you couldn't find their records anywhere.
You couldn't find it. Exactly.
Not in the Midwest. So, and by that time, I had discovered the Misfits. I think I had a copy of, Walk Among Us that I bought off some kid for $5. I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. That record sucks. Okay, you want to sell it to me? Here's $5. Take it off your hands. And but most of it was from tapes. We just, you write to some guy, I guess some pen pal in New Jersey or something. It's like, oh yeah, you like the Misfits? And I'm like, I'd like to hear more of them. And then next thing you know, there's a C90 in a mail with a bunch of their stuff. And that was really, you couldn't find.
Well, we have a Misfitologist in the band in the chat.
Well, we do. That's kind of. I guess that's kind of like subliminally why it popped up, because that was really work.
So,
you couldn't even read.
Doc H is a huge Misfits record collector. If anybody didn't know, he has some incredible stuff. So,
I remember in those band photos, maybe it was like the Faceless tape or some of the other photos. You guys would have like a Sam Hain shirt on or a Misfits shirt, and I always saw the connection as being like perfect, like you guys doing a similar thing with grind and death metal, what they were doing in your own way, obviously, in your own style.
Well, and it was and it was bands like the Misfits, I think.
I hear the Dead Kennedys in Impetigo early stuff.
Absolutely. I was a huge Dead Kennedys fan. And, it's just bands like that. I think, Misfits in particular, obviously, I mean, I was playing covers of We Are 138 before I even met Mark, in any band I was in. And it was really bands like that and Bauhaus and stuff like that where, the first got the idea. I'm like, music about horror movies is really cool and nobody really does it.
Yeah, because you guys were the first band. I mean, I want to throw this out there. You guys are the first band I remember having a sample before your song. Like,
yeah, we us and Mortician probably did it about the same time. I don't.
Right.
I like to say, I don't like to think about it in terms of who was first. It was just kind of like when we released our live demo, we had some samples at the end of it as kind of like a joke, and then when we released Giallo, it's like. When we reached Giallo, Mark had all this stuff from the tapes that he wanted to put at the beginning of it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's bad as hell. And then we heard the Mortician demo where at the end, you come to us. And that was at the end of it. And we were just like, oh, hell yeah. See, that works,
Yes.
And actually that idea came from the idea for sampling for me to put samples in the stuff kind of came from originally from an old record by David Byrne and Brian Eno, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. They used a lot of samples from radio broadcasts and Lebanese mountain singers, juxtaposed against with other music and stuff like that. And I always thought that was cool. I used to make tapes in my, bedroom when I was in high school and shit. And I would take like the instrumental part of a Public Image song, like Jaime's Hymn or something, like the beginning of it, or Four Enclosed Walls, if you know the song, it's got Martin Atkins going bum, 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 over and over again. And then I would get like a clip from a radio show, like I heard someone do it on a magazine comp, and it was a Chuck Norris on the Rona Barrett show, and they had spliced the tape up and mixed it up. So Chuck was saying things, like, Chuck, do you ever think? No, Nora, not at all.
Right.
Or no, Rona, not at all. I never do. And kind of rearranging it. And I used to take tapes like that and mix them up and put them against like Public Image and Flipper songs, just kind of just for fun.
That was the preface to you doing it with your own
band.
It
was always kind of and there were some punk rock bands who had been doing it also. And I'm like, oh, see, there you go. That's really cool. And even, in a video format, I don't know if everybody remembers the Target video, and they had an MDC video. And before MDC played John Wayne Was a Nazi, they had this film clip of John Wayne, blah, 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 blah. And then it cuts right to Dave going, and now you're dead. And they started the song. And I thought, you see, that's how you do it right there. That's bad as hell. But,
but I mean, back in the earliest days, we had to go to the video store and rent out a copy and then put our two VCRs together, right?
That's right.
And then have to
struggle,
yes. We rent out. I saw an old interview with Impetigo where Mark was saying that we rented out 7 videos at a time or something.
Yeah. And even before, I knew Mark and I was dubbing tapes, I was the first kid in Freeport, Illinois to have a VCR in his house. It was a Beta machine because my sister was taking dance classes from a guy who owned one, and he lived out in the boondocks and didn't have any cable or anything. So he let us have the Beta machine at our house if we taped something on TV for him if it came on. And we were like, sure. So I had this Betamax in my basement. I think I still have it back here somewhere, but and I would tape, we didn't have MTV yet, so I would tape like Fridays, and I would tape the Midnight Special and stuff, and Plasmatics, the good old days. And and then to rent a movie you had to go to Photomat, which was if anyone remembers Photomat, it was a little booth like in a corner of a parking lot by a strip mall or a gas station.
Where you had your film developed.
Yeah, you had your film developed, and they rented videotapes. So they had like 40 videotapes in the back of the wall. And you could rent them for $5 for a week or something like that. And they had shit like, they had Woody Allen movies. And I think the heaviest thing they had was like 2001, A Space Odyssey, and that was almost 3 hours long. So that was great.
Right.
But I would tape, we got HBO at one point, and I would take movies on HBO. So I had this collection on Betamax of movies I had taped on HBO, like The Boogans and The Dark and shit like that. And at one point in time, a few years later, when the rental craze started happening, so you could go to Curtis Mathis, a TV store, and you could rent movies there. You could go, and then these little mom and pop shops started popping up, and it was like, oh, this is great. And then they would rent a VCR to you for $10 or whatever.
And the VCRs cost like $700 back then.
Oh, yeah. No one owned a VCR at the time, really, but I had these tapes, and I had this beta machine, so I would rent these VCRs from Curtis Mathis or what have you, and sometimes we'd rent two. And we would rent like two machines and a stack of movies, and all weekend long sit in the basement, drink beer, and dub movies.
Dub them, right.
Over and over and over again until
real-time dubbing.
How did you figure out how to hook them up?
I've been goofing around with stereos and video equipment since I was a peanut. So, they had coaxial cables, and it's like, oh, okay. This goes in here and that goes out
Radio
there.
Shack.
I could set up monitors. If I had 4 VCRs going at one time, I could get like a little old black and white TV, hook the cable up to that, and if it didn't have a coaxial, you just open the back of it, and there's usually 2 screws in there, and you can rig a coaxial cable to have a what we call an A and a B wire hanging out. You screw those to the back of the screw, and then the TV acts like a monitor. So anything that signals coming out of the back would come on the TV. When I was in college, we had built a loft in a dorm room, and we had a TV down below, and I had another smaller TV, and I'm like, well, watch this. And I literally took speaker wire and ran it from one TV to the other. So whatever was on the TV down below was on the TV above. So you play your Atari game sitting up your bed in the loft while,
your roommates must have loved you.
Yeah, that's next level.
So
that's Mr. Wizard.
The coaxial cables, and then this is kind of before the RCA jacks were a thing,
right?
Because they're all mono, and they were all like disparate signals. So a coaxial cable was pretty much your only thing. So I had a box of cables at home, and you just one to TV to the monitor, to the in VCR, to the out VCR, and you just crack open a case of Little Kings and dub all weekend. It was a wonderful time.
You know what, though, too? Like, that's the thing is, I'm sure, to you or to any average fan of the band, sometimes these samples were, like, very, like, they stuck in your head more than, you could mouth them off, like, as they came out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the samples weren't like, oh, here's a clip from Friday the 13th. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you have that clip from Cannibal Holocaust about Filippo Cagna.
I recognize.
Whenever I hear that in the movie, I immediately think of that. And all of the same.
Not just his mistake. You don't hear the music start. You're like, wait, what's going on?
You wait for the cue.
Yeah, it's funny. The other night
they were real out there and different. That's why they stick in your head.
And it was funny you mentioned that too, because I was watching Breakfast in the Manchester Morgue the other day, and it's like where that part comes up where I took from for the song in Horde of the Zombies. I kind of edited a sequence of about 35 seconds down to about 20. And when I hear it in the movie, I was like, I don't remember this.
Right. You made your own cut.
I slice out some of the extra stuff.
You remember your edit, not theirs.
I know, right? It's just, and even though I've only heard the song, my version of the song and the sample itself, probably about 3 or 4 times. I just remember, that's all I remember is that. But
from your earliest days, you guys forming a band. Obviously, you were starting, and you started the Slow Death thing. I guess you acquired the drummer after that, and
originally we couldn't find a drummer, and all you drummers out there know what I'm talking about. It's like y'all are hard to get along with. We have to practice at your place, and we have to practice when you say so, and that's fine. That's why both of my kids are drummers, is because I told them, I said, you want to play the drum, then here's why. You make the rules, you set the agenda. If the drummer doesn't like a song you're playing, the chances are you're not going to play that song for very much longer. I'm just saying that's just the way it goes. But the Yeah, we had known Dan from Naked Hippie, and we wanted a drummer. You know, Sergeant Rock had kind of gone on the fritz. Well, Sergeant Rock was supposed to play in Peoria, and Jimmy had kind of backed out of it. And I called Mark and I said, I really want to play this show in Peoria. I mean, it's like fucking Naked Hippies playing, Steve Stiletto and the Switchblades are playing. I really want to play this show. I only played a few shows with Sergeant Rock, and I really had the bug, you know. And I said, I really want to play this show. This is fucking Peoria, man. We got to do it. And Mark said, yeah, well, okay, I'm in. And we got together, and he's like, we got to find a drummer. We couldn't find anybody. And we knew Dan from Naked Hippie. And since Naked Hippie was playing anyway, we're like, hey, Dan. And Dan was like, sure. So we got together. We practiced like 2 or 3 times and went through our 15-minute set. And then, yeah, we played the show like 2 weeks after I called Mark. That's how quickly it happened. But on the way to the show, you know, we chose the name Slow Death, and that was fine. And they put that on the flyers and everything. Yeah. Trivia question. If anyone ever says you got a flyer from the first Impetigo gig, if it says Impetigo on it, then they're lying because everybody thought Slow Death was showing up.
Right.
And we're in a car, you know, and I was a huge Mighty Sphincter fan. That's another band who kind of, who was doing a lot of horror influenced rock, metal, doom, gothic, whatever you want. And they had a song called Impetigo, and they spelled it Impentigo, but whatever. And the song basically is about this guy making fun of a dude who's a poser. And like, you know, the poser scratched his name of his favorite band on his arm so he could look cool and fit in with the rest of the Blitz kids. But he was just a poser, and he got Impetigo, you know, as a result. So, and I always thought that sarcasm in the song, it was with their original singer, Ron Reckless. And I always like the sarcasm in that song. And it has a great riff too. If you ever hear the song, it kind of opens up with the spooky da 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 da, like with Mighty Sphincter. And then they go into this boom, boom, ba da da da. And the idea was we were actually going to play that song at one point, and we just didn't have time to get it together. Then I'm in the car with Mark on the way to the show, and I said, you know, Slow Death is kind of cheesy. We should change our name to something else. And Mark's like, oh, I said, well, you know that song Impetigo by Mighty Sphincter? He's like, yeah, I do. And I said, we should go by Impetigo instead. And he's like, well, what is Impetigo? And I said, Impetigo is a skin condition that in advanced stages can cause your skin to rot and fall off. And he looked at me and he went, yes. I mean, he didn't even have to think twice about it. And so we literally walk up to this the juice bar in Peoria, and a bunch of freaks and punks are hanging out there. And Dan shows up, and I said, oh, Dan, we're not Slow Death anymore. We're Impetigo. He said, what? And I took a rock and I scratched it on the street out in front of the club. Impetigo. Okay. And he goes, all right, whatever. Because you were just borrowing Dan.
Right.
And then, you know, the show came and went. I mean, we were done in 15 minutes. It was amazing that we even made it through that, considering we had just got together for literally 2 weeks. And I didn't live in Bloomington anymore. I was back in Decatur. So I was a whole hour away from Mark and Dan with very limited resources to get there. So we couldn't practice a lot. Right. But they were both real keen on it. And then we still considered Dan like a temporary drummer, but shortly after that, I moved to Bloomington for good. And I called up Mark and Dan. Well, I didn't have a phone. I had to go to the pizza place behind my house and use a payphone. Right. And said, hey, let's get together and jam. Let's do something. And like, yeah, cool. And, you know, we wrote a few more songs, and I don't know. At some point in time, we just kind of all looked at each other. I said, Dan, I think you're in this band, whether you like it or not. He didn't have a problem with it, so it was all good, yeah.
And then as far as like, you know, the themes that came along with the band, I mean, were they, do you find that they were intentional or they just came out of just everyone's taste?
I was always trying to do a Frank Zappa thing, especially at the beginning, but I was doing it wrong. And Mark and I had a little come to Jesus talk in about 88 or so. And I was trying to do a Frank Zappa thing where, I wanted to make an album like Freak Out, that had a lot of stuff that was going on that was related. And I had this concept about the big picture and the big note, like Frank says, and everything.
Right. Concept.
And I mean, straight away, we took the old Sergeant Rock songs, which is all joke songs about military stuff, and I wrote new lyrics in them, and they were very horror influenced. There's a Revenge of the Scabby Man is kind of like a horror movie set to music, right? It's a story about this gross guy that walks around and jacks off on people and shit, and Harbinger of Death is more like a true crime horror movie, right? NBC movie of the week. This kid gets on top of overpasses and drops rocks on passing cars and shit, something like that.
Okay.
And some of it was just nonsense, like All Night Dragnet. I dropped a tab of acid and watched Dragnet all night long. I killed 6 people. It still wasn't fun, It was just kind of tongue-in-cheek shit, but I always wanted to do a thing like Frank Zappa with the
it had like the stuff had a concept not only from your demo,
right?
but there was some, the entire.
Yeah, there was definitely some conceptual continuity throughout, and that's kind of why Ultimo came out the way it did. Mark talked to me, and he's like, we're going kind of wild. When we did a cover of Jam on It, that was Help I'm a Rock by Frank Zappa also, that was kind of when the wheels went off, and Mark's like, we gotta rethink this. That was uncomfortable, and he's right, it was horrible. So I kind of turned around the direction a little bit. I we play faster, a little bit heavier, and more like Napalm Death and Carcass. I'm like, that's really, I listen to that, and I'm like, that's really what I really like, the way that shit sounds.
Right.
And I think we can still play our old songs, but play them more like that. Okay. So like the first thing we did was kind of rearranged Harbinger of Death to be like a Napalm Death song instead of an Accused song, for example. It was more Accused then, it was more Napalm Death now, or whatever. And then some of the stuff we didn't touch at all. We just played it a little faster and a little heavier, a little less goofy vocals, and a little, throw some growling in here, but still the same kind of thing. And, full circle there, Ultimo Mondo Cannibale is really the Freak Out album I wanted to make in the first place. It kind of has a flow. Even though it's all random songs from different times, just like Freak Out was.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too. We're going to talk back about your demos, but let's talk about this album right here. So the first time I had heard this record, right, I had ordered it on cassette from Wild Rags Records or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I was just dumbstruck by after the first sample or whatever, the vocal attack was just so it was a mix between like a Ghoul and like Bill Steer from Carcass, basically.
Yeah,
where it had the low effects
vocals. The cool part was you can thank Lance from Macabre for that, because we started hanging out with them, and I was just flabbergasted.
Oh, I could tell the early when I had first heard. Heard the
so
first
my Blaine high pitched screams kind of became more Lancey high pitched screams and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I'm assuming that definitely Macabre had a huge influence on you guys.
Oh yeah,
when you were making that record.
We're friends with those guys for 40-something years now, and that story is a pretty good one too. Mark and I had gone to Chicago with some friends of ours to see Voivod and Creator at the Cabaret Metro, and our friend's car died on Lakeshore Drive on the way. The Chicago tow truck pushed us off Lakeshore Drive and onto Ontario, I think, right a block off of there. And we had taken a bus to get to the rest of the way to the venue, because we were still 20 minutes away. And it rained like hell on the way. I had a Poison Ideas shirt on, and it was all the way down to my knees by the time we got to the show. But we made it to the show. The show was fantastic, and this is what life in your 20s is like, right? We got to the show, and then we're at the show. We're just flipping out, having a great time. And then we're leaving the show, and we're like,
holy shit.
Well, how the fuck do we get home? Never occurred to us until after. But we're walking out of the cabaret, walking down the street with all these other freaks, and there's 3 guys with boxes of records standing in front of a store that was 2 doors down from the cab. And they're holding these records up, and they're going, Serial Killers, double bass, really fast, $5. Serial Killers, double bass, super fast, $5. And I stopped, and I was like, looking at it, I'm like, holy shit, this looks fantastic. We had about $7 between us. And so we scraped the money together, and Mark had the honor of saying, here's the $5 and getting the record. And we talked to him for a few minutes. And I was just like, looking at the back of the cover, it was like airbrush, people getting their eyeballs pulled out on the front cover and the back and the songs. And I was like, this is killer. And we introduced ourselves, said we're from down the road a couple hours, and it's great. And thanks. And how we got home is another story and what happened on the way there. But I actually had to call Glenn from Impulse Manslaughter in the middle of the night. We walked to the McDonald's across the street from Wrigley Field. And, back then, like you say, we all just knew each other from letters and shit. And I had a little folded up piece of paper in my pocket.
Phone numbers.
People's phone numbers. You have one. And I'm like, who the fuck do I know in Chicago? And I'm looking, and there's Glenn Herman's name. And I'm on a payphone in a McDonald's across from Wrigley. Don't go looking for it. It's not there anymore. They tore it down and built a hotel. And it's like 2:00 in the morning. And Glenn lives 45 minutes away from there. Glenn, hey, this is Stevo. Stevo, yeah, Stevo from Normal, man. From Bloomington, Splatterzine Stevo. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm in Chicago. And he's like, good. And your ride. We stood there at a McDonald's for an hour and a half. And Glenn Herman rolls up in his little beat up car. It had been raining all night, and it wasn't at that point. So everything was foggy as hell. And he gave us a ride to our car back on Ontario Lakeshore Drive. And miraculously, it started.
Oh, wow.
Our car started. And the other 2 friends of ours had to get on a plane at 8:00 in the morning.
Oh, shit.
At O'Hare. See, it wasn't just about getting home. It's like, we got to get to O'Hare. Then how are we going to get home? We didn't know how we were going to get home. And, we'd given up our money for the Macabre record. So we had like $2. We got like whatever we could at White Castle with that money. The car started, and they went to the airport. And then Mark and I just, we got bus tickets somehow, and we took a bus back home. And then I saw him the next day, and he's like, this record is fantastic. You got to hear it. And I went over to his place, and we listened to it. And I grabbed a sheet of paper and put my $5 in an envelope and sent it to him that day. And yeah, we've been friends ever since, man. It was great. They were at my 21st birthday party.
Oh, that's cool.
Where they played a show, and then he came over to my house afterwards, and I got a keg, and I had a few people over, and we were listening to Rolling in Only in It for the Money by Frank Zappa. And I'm sitting there with Lance and Chuck, who are both Frank Zappa fans also. And we're just talking. We're listening to the Flower Punk song, Hey Punk, Where You Going with the Gun in Your Hand, which is kind of like Hey Joe, right? By Jimi Hendrix, And
right.
And Chuck's like, this could be a groovy song. And I'm like, yeah, it could do like, and I threw out a couple names. And one of the names that Lance said are like Lori Dan, like, hey, Lori Dan. Yeah, hey, Lori Dan, where you going with the gun in your hand or whatever. And I see Chuck at a show in Chicago. It was another Voivod show, coincidentally. And Chuck says, hey, we finished that song. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The song we wrote at your place, man. Hey, Lori Dan, where you going with the gun in your hand? And I'm like, no, get the fuck out of here. I forgot all about that. But yeah, we've been really good friends with them for many years. And the story how we met them that could only happen. That could only happen in like 86 or whenever.
Yeah, fucking parking lot purchase,
Random as hell, man.
Random as hell, parking lot purchase.
Were you into the true crime thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, because mostly because I read I think I read In Cold Blood when I was probably about 8 or 9 years old, and I thought that was a great book. And then I read Compulsion by Ira Levine right after that, and I actually thought Compulsion was a better book, and I didn't even know there was a movie made of it until about 10 years later, because I only knew what I knew. Brad was there. Brad Absconder. Let me tell you something. Just about every fucking time Mark and I were in Chicago, Brad was always there, man. He was always there. It was cool. We Mark and I both always talk about Brad like we grew up with him, because every time we were in Chicago, Brad was there and we'd hang out and talk. It's fucking wild, man. He was always there.
It's wild how far back people can go, friend-wise and acquaintance-wise.
But yeah, I'd read Compulsion by Myra Levine or whatever, and I really thought. I thought that was a fantastic book. That was
you had incorporated some like true crime samples.
Yeah. So we were kind of and like I said, even like Harbinger of Death was kind of like a true crime song. It wasn't the same way Macabre did, but it was a song about a real person.
Right.
See, that was Harbinger of Death was about a real guy, a guy named Chris Lewis, and that's exactly what he did. He'd climb up on top of towers and drop shit on people, stand in overpasses, hit cars, and and Staff Terrorist was also based on a real person that I knew in Decatur, who bragged about smearing his shit on hamburgers when he worked at Hardee's and getting the Decatur Park Singers sick because of it. I probably making it up, but it sounded pretty good,
Yeah.
And then 30 years later, there's this guy at Taco Bell licking the shells, and I'm like, the Staff Terrorist, man, he's still out there.
Yeah. Made it to the album,
Yeah. So the true crime was always a real interest of mine because of all that stuff. And then, of course, I had seen Psycho when I was a kid, but I didn't know that Psycho was loosely based on the whole Ed Gein thing.
Right.
Until I read about Ed Gein, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This sounds just like, even though people argue all the time about, well, Psycho's not really
right
like it, but the pathology is the same. And if you read about Ed Gein and you've seen Psycho and you don't have any relationship between the two other than what you've known, you read about Ed Gein, you do, Norman Bates does pop in your head, because the pathology is exactly the same as far as his relationship with his mom. And of course, we grew up in the Satanic Panic era, Ricky Casso, fucking Night Stalker, all those guys, and the Hillside Stranglers. So, that was all very lurid subject matter. And the one of my favorite true crime movies is actually a made-for-TV movie called The Deliberate Stranger. It's about Ted Bundy.
Oh, I remember that
one.
It
stars Mark Harmon.
With Mark Harmon, yeah.
Yeah, and his performance as Ted Bundy is really as legitimate as to getting inside the man's head as you could get for on the screen, because there's nothing harmful about the way he looks. And Harmon throughout the movie does this a fantastic job of like just like looking innocent, and then his face subtly changes into the face of someone who might be depraved and all that stuff. But and of course I can't leave the topic without telling you about the first time I watched Helter Skelter on TV when it first aired on TV in 73 or 74. My parents weren't fond of me watching it, but I had a little 12-inch black and white TV in my room. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm watching this. And it was great. But what really freaked me out was the end, where it said Charles Manson is getting out of jail in 1986. And I was like,
you looked at the calendar and it's 1986. So.
Yeah, well, it was, like I said, it was 73.
Before that.
But... we all have time.
Yeah.
We all have time. What are we going to do about this guy when he gets out and comes to get us? He was a boogeyman.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I would have been about 7 or 8 years old at the time, Yeah, it was a real life boogeyman.
What about earliest horror movie on TV thing for you? Because I know for myself it was Hounds of Baskerville.
Like the Sherlock Holmes stuff.
I guess it was like the first
know.
thing I thought was like horror.
Right.
I used to watch every Friday night or Saturday night, depending on where you lived. They used to have creature features, and so I grew up watching all the Universal horror films and the Godzilla movies and stuff like that. But I think the first horror movie that I ever saw that really, I mean, I thought that stuff was fun. It was like Scooby Doo, you know. I mean, look, there's Frankenstein. Yeah, he's on Scooby Doo also. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. The Mummy was probably the creepiest of all of them, but only like 5 minutes of it. The rest of it was, you know, Boris Karloff looking like he's trying to hold it together, you know, not fall apart into mummy dust while everybody else talks. The first horror movie I ever saw, it was on TV, that ever stuck with me was a movie called Disciple of Death. It was another early 70s movie, one of the few movies that Mike Raven was in. And I think he actually directed this one too, although someone else was credited. And this movie still to this day sticks in my mind. It scarred me for life. It changed everything. It was on the Monster Rally Theater, which is WFLD in Chicago.
Okay.
Which, of course, was where Son of Svengoolie was the host later on. Well, intermittently. Or no, I'm sorry. Monster Rally Theater was not on WFLD. It was on WSNS, which is Channel 44. And I watched Monster Rally Theater, you know, liberally. I mean, all the time. And and I can't remember the exact words, although I should. But you got to understand, I'm almost 60 years old, and it's really hard. But I remember turning the TV on. Monster Rally Theater was on, and it had this whole creepy intro where this gorilla hand comes out, puts out a candle. It was actually from a movie, and I used to know the movie and I forgot. And then this sign with these words on a gravestone shows up, and all this fire happens. Then you hear Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor. And you know, once upon a time there was a Disciple of Death, and this movie had everything. It's to this day, it's still not only was it the first thing I ever saw stuck in my craw, but it is one of the best horror films ever made in terms of, you know, checking all the boxes.
TV movies back in the day.
And I'm like, you know, I'm not even 10 years old, and I'm watching this guy conjure a satanic dwarf, and he's drinking blood, and there's these, you know, all these, you know, zombie people running around, and it ends with a satanic ritual and a fire. I mean, it had everything.
Had everything you needed at the time.
And
young, impressionable age, plenty of Satanism, you know, maybe some half-naked girls.
And I saw it again, you know, and I saw it, you know, and WSNS has like 40 horror movies in their library. So I probably saw it again, you know, a couple times over the years when I lived in the area. But yeah, I did see someone mention The Exorcist. Now, this is I didn't see The Exorcist until I was probably 12 years old or so. And by then I was already jaded. So I'm watching it and I'm like, yeah, this is fucking cool. But what's the big deal? You know, everybody, you know, several years earlier, my friends are like, it was either Jaws or The Exorcist. You know, when we were growing up, there was like two movies that nobody would let their kids see. One of them was Jaws and one of them was Exorcist. Oh, and then nobody would let you see the Rocky Horror Picture Show either. You had to sneak out of the house and do this shit. And that's how I learned how to sneak into movies was, you know, want to go see Jaws? Well, let's go fucking sneak in. And Exorcist.
Yeah, you would buy tickets for the movie next to it and then run into the
like,
other theater.
And we lived across from a drive-in theater then in like starting in 78. Christmas 77 through, well, all the way until I moved away from Freeport. There was a drive-in theater right across the highway from us. So a buddy of mine lived literally in the house across the street from it, and we could climb out of his window, sit on top of the roof, and we could watch movies. So, and they showed the shittiest movies, the best shittiest movies, of course. I saw the Boogans there, and I saw Star Crash. You remember that? Mm-hmm. Star Crash was fantastic because I read about it in Famous Monsters, and I thought, the guy with the guns looks bad as hell. And then when you see the movie and you hear him and he's got kind of a Western accent, you're like, what? But anyway, it was fun. We watched scalps and all that shit. Driving, sit on because you could hear. You sit on the roof, you could hear everybody.
Oh, you could hear the echo coming across the whole lot, right?
And then the older we got, then we're like, well, let's just go there, crawl under the fence, get a couple beers, and we sit behind someone's car.
Like the Outsiders.
Exactly.
Snipe somebody.
Show
up with your switchblade,
Yeah, and the people who ran these places didn't care because they're like, these kids are coming in here, but in a couple of years they're going to have cars, and they're going to want to take their girlfriends out, and they're not going to be interested in the movies anymore. So we're building a customer base here. That's what that was.
Well, even if you snuck in, they were fine.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they knew we were all climbing the fence and getting underneath it and shit like that, and running around, go to the snack bar. They knew what was going on.
But, I mean, even though this is an Impetigo, I feel that all this horror stuff is like completely relevant to you guys, and what kind of built the basis of some of the ideas that came out of the first.
It was not our idea at first to like be a band that does horror music or whatever, but that's really what I was writing about was horror and true crime, and I was a movie fan from a very early age, and like I say, when I wrote Revenge of the Scabby Man, I'm like, this is great. This is like a little horror movie, and Bitch Death Teenage Mucus Monster from Hell, that's another little horror movie, and kind of I mixed it up with the influences of the movies that I like to watch, and then also like the movies that I would make if I had $12 million and the talent, which I don't. I'm better at writing songs that are movies better than making movies that are songs.
Yeah, I wanted to ask towards the like the Lucio Fulci's, the Cannibal stuff, the Argento, like what because there was that stuff was not in the theaters usually.
No, it wasn't.
It was not on television. Where did you catch the influences of that stuff?
Video stores. That's go back to the dubbing days, and I think Zombie was probably the first Fulci movie I had ever seen, and Deep Red was my first Argento film, and then of course, even before those two, the Wizard Video Blood Feast or whatever,
right?
Big box. Had the girl getting her tongue ripped out right on the cover. I didn't need to think about it. I just saw the cover and I'm like, well, this has got to be great. And my first impression of it was, the camera works bad, the acting's horrible, the effects are over the top, and I'm like, I can't believe this was made like 3 years before I was born. This is nuts. And so I'm like, I gotta watch more. And then I'm that was barely the time, as a couple years later when you started finding like the Splatter Times and video violence and magazines like that. That actually these guys did all this research about, Herschel Gordon Lewis and who he was. And it wasn't too long after Blood Feast though, and like the Italian stuff started popping out. I started renting like Zombie. And I'd seen, Dawn of the Dead, and I was like, I watched Deep Red, and I'm like, this is the same band that did the music for Dawn of the Dead. And I'm like, and of course a few years later I read the George Romero book, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. But the Italian stuff, well, I mean, one of my favorite movies, I saw Dressed to Kill when it came out, and I was a Brian De Palma fan for about 3 or 4 years, and I'm like, this guy is fucking fantastic. Hitchcock can go gargle my nuts, man, because Brian De Palma is where it's at. And Dressed to Kill in particular, I really, really, really like the pace, and like, the killer whips out this, this knife, and it's shiny, and there's all these gloves and these eyeballs.
It's like very giallo heavy,
whether it was and
intentional or not. It was very giallo.
It was very intentional. The whole art museum scene, the way the camera moves, it's like it's walking, but it's walking slowly, and the characters are walking fast, but the cameras, and I was just really, really, really buns up, Neela, and happy about this. I love this movie quite a bit. It was like 80 or 81 it came out.
Yep.
The blow up, not so much. And then, of course, because he had done Carrie before.
Well, Blow Up was the one from the 70s, right? That they based it on or whatever.
Yeah, it was like an Antonio.
I didn't even know about that until later down the line.
And I liked Carrie. I mean, who didn't like Carrie? We all thought it was great, but this one was a lot different. And then when I saw Deep Red, I recognized some elements. Of course, Deep Red was made before Dress to Kill, right? And we find this out later. It's kind of with the Italian cinema. It's almost like you're learning history in reverse. Well, the first time you pick up on it, especially at the time. Because nobody really wrote anything about these guys, and they all had American names: Anthony Dawn, Vincent Bruno. Nobody knew who the fuck this guy was, and Louis Coates. And I was like, this is really interesting. These guys, obviously, I'm reading the opening credits and the names: D'Artano, Sacchetti, and Zombie. Same thing, and I'm like, these are Italian films. I can tell right now. And Deep Red in particular, there was something familiar about the pace, and then the knife was shiny, and eyeballs, the way the characters walked one speed, but the camera walked another.
The point of view stuff.
Have I seen this before? And then I'm like,
the black gloves, with the sharp knife,
gloves, everything. And even in Dress to Kill, the final scene, not the dream scene, but the climax of the movie where it's raining and he's looking through everything about it, the peeping, Keith Gordon is peeping through the window with his binoculars, and it's raining. And what did I just see? He sees something he thinks he sees, but he doesn't know what he's seeing. All of that. When I watched Deep Red, the scene where he walks through the apartment after the psychologist is killed, David Hemmings. And I'm like, this is the art museum scene from Dress to Kill. Right? He's walking this speed, the camera's walking this speed, and he sees something he didn't see, and all in my brain is on fire. I'm like, I have seen this before. And so then over the years, I started discovering these other Giallo movies, which were more like Dress to Kill than Deep Red even was,
Right.
And there's a whole body of work there we come to discover through some really, really shitty dubs. Sometimes finding them through
like tape trading, VHS dubbing.
Sometimes they weren't even in English.
Right.
And you're like, following along for the visual effect.
Yes, or reading or watching an English film, but it had like Dutch subtitles at the bottom or whatever.
Right. And then we rented. I was watching Zombie. I said, "This is good." Deep Red. This is great. We had seen in a movie theater. We had seen this movie. We thought it was a George Romero movie, but it wasn't. It was the really bad zombie movie with Mel Ferrer in it. Name's escaping me. Doc, help me out.
I don't remember. I don't know.
Nightmare City?
Yeah. It was Nightmare City. It was called something else. And we saw that in the theaters, and I'm just looking around the place, and I'm like, this is fucking nuts. This movie's great. Shit through the eyeballs. I'm like, this is perfect. This is, and this also is Italian. I think it was Italian, Spanish, but what have you.
Yeah.
But, and that really got for me in the Italian stuff. And then, of course, when, Mark and I were hanging out,
you guys fed each other basically, right?
Yeah,
musically and visually.
Italian thing for real until the day he came over. I was at my then girlfriend, she's my wife now, is at her apartment, which was right across from the pizza place I worked at, or it was on top of the pizza place, right across from the record store we hung out. And Mark came by, and he's had a couple of tapes for me, and he had one he slipped to the top. And he said, "This is the greatest fucking movie I've ever seen in my life. You're not going to believe it." And it says Cannibal Holocaust on the tape. And I said, This is like 87, 88. And I said, okay, man. Because, I mean, what's in a title, right? And I think I had to go to work in a couple hours or whatever. And I popped it in and I watched it. And I was floored when that movie ended. I was just like, well, what the fuck have I just watched? That was incredible. It
when
was
movies
amazing.
made you feel like dirty inside.
Well, and it was the way it was that's a special movie because, the debate is always out there. Was Deodato actually making an exploitation film, or was he making a film that was demonizing the exploitation film? And even he was kind of vague in his answer. He didn't necessarily make, like classics, any of his movies,
right. Yeah.
So the needle moves a little bit towards the exploitation side. But I think that he was a man who was suffering with his vision as an artist and his vision and his desire to pay the bills, as a lot of people are in their lives, especially filmmakers. It's like, I can make the movie I want, but I'm going to go broke doing it, and I don't want to live in a trash can.
It's almost like a lot of those Italian film directors filmed a lot of their stuff all at the same exact filming location.
And why doesn't Jim Van Bebber have 20 movies under his belt? Because he's making the shit he wants to make,
right?
And he's not making the stuff everybody else wants to. And the Deodato he hit all the right marks with Cannibal Holocaust, and the actors. Riz Ortolani's score was magnificent. I mean, I don't know about you, but every time I pick up a guitar, I'm playing, it's like that song, that theme song, and how it goes throughout the boom, 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 pew, pew. It's just
yes.
It is probably one of the finest. If it weren't for Suspiria, it would probably be the finest piece of Italian.
And like the first 5-10 minutes of it too, you kind of think like, oh, this is gonna be trash, because like just the quality of it's kind of shitty, you know what I mean? But then as the movie goes on, you're like, I get this.
Yeah, there's a lot, and see, that's the thing. If you watch a lot of H.G. Lewis, a lot of the camera work, not their camera work, but the camera work in the beginning and all, it's kind of like Make Them Die Slowly is the same thing. Fulci and Deodato and those guys, they really, you could tell they really appreciated what Lewis was doing as far as the cinematography aspect. It's like, we're making low budget movies. We are making sleaze, which is what Lewis was. Lewis was like, I don't make these movies because I like them. I like them because I make them because I can get them in the theaters and people pay to see it.
Right.
And that's where the Italian film industry was at the time. It was like, forget about the content, And so they were, they had an appreciation for the stuff that guys like Lewis had done in the 60s, because that really opened the doors more than anything. I mean, there were a lot of sleaze filmmakers, Doris Wishman and people like that during the time. But Lewis's stuff was box office spectacular. That's his name of his one of the name of his companies. That was box office spectacular. When he says, he's exaggerating a little bit, or he was, when he said Blood Feast, it's like people are lining up out the door, to see it. What he's telling you is like, there were more people going to see Blood Feast than there were to see any of Doris Wishman's movies, because that's just all nudie and maybe crime stuff. He had hit something there, not just in the content, but in the execution.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the Italian cinema, you don't hear people mention it too much, but to me, a lot of the Italian cinema has always had a fondness for Herschel Gordon Lewis's cinematography and the way he used the camera. Not as shaky, but in Cannibal Holocaust, see, Deodato has these scenes in there that you, for a second, you can almost hear Herschel behind the camera going, "Cut! That was great." I shot it. Nobody fucked up their lines too bad. It was a little out of focus. The framing was bad, but it works. Let's move on to the next scene, and that really is an art form. It's what's so artistic about Gigi Allen rolling around on broken glass? Not everyone's going to do it, and everyone wants to see it, whether they like to admit it or not. I mean, that's it's hard, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there was a certain glaze over the Italian films, camera styles mixed with good soundtrack, and then it's obviously
the flashing, the
and then close-ups of the eyes, or point of view of the killer.
And the stories, so the twist endings is, and again,
the twist endings.
Still had oh my God, the psychiatrist is the killer, and he's a transsexual. It's like I was 20, 30 years later, so I'm watching Giallo films, and I'm like, Brian De Palma owes me an apology. At that point, I no longer. I mean, I had given up on him. I guess he was a decent filmmaker, but he was a hack for basically making a Giallo film and not standing on a box and going, I'm glad you all like this movie, but let me tell you something. There are 40 more like it, and they're all made in Italy, and here they are. Here are the titles of them.
I made a US version of it.
Right, and that's one of the things you have to admire about a guy like Quentin Tarantino, because he doesn't sit there like Brian De Palma and say, "Oh, look at this fantastic thing." He's like, "No, you like this movie? Here's the 30 movies that I basically borrowed from to make this one picture, and you should watch them, because if you like this, you'll like them."
Yes,
and he's not wrong.
Blowout so Steve, is awesome.
You were getting these movies through like Cannibal Holocaust or Deadbeat. Were you getting these through tape trading?
Mostly, yeah. I think Mark got Cannibal Holocaust from Mike Death, a guy that Mark traded videos with. That was his name, Mike Death. And Deadbeat was different. So Deadbeat had a very, very, very limited VHS release.
Okay.
Place we had, Mark and I had just read about it. Chaz Balin wrote something about it in a Deep Red. And we had literally saw it at a store the next day after we read the article. The issue had just come out. And I rented it and I dubbed it. And then 2 weeks later, we went back to, and it was gone because they had pulled it. I had a copy that I made, it must have been the day or the week they got it. And then they pulled it. And that tape, everybody that came after I had that tape, everybody that came over to the house had to watch it. It was kind of like, Fight Club. Rule number 1, we have to eat pizza. Rule number 2, you have to watch Deadbeat at Dawn. And then you have to watch Seeing is Believing, which is some movie I got from Chris Reifert or Bloody Mess or something, where a dude gets his scrotum nailed to the top of a bench. It was great. It had some shit eating in it too. But he had to watch Deadbeat at Dawn. And there are a lot of people. My favorite example is Rob Fornicator, of course. Rob Dellinger, my very good friend. Rob and Craig from Disciples of Hate at the time, they came over and hung out with us. And you have to watch this movie. And I just love the look on people's faces when that movie ends. There's just no one says a word. Everyone's just like, 1 minute after the next, even with all the talking in the middle, everyone's just getting their thoughts together. And when that movie's over with, they're just looking around the room like, what did I just watch? That is the coolest thing ever. The character of Goose was so familiar to me because I had a really good friend in Decatur he's deceased now. But he was, when I lived in Decatur, he was buddy of mine. He's about 4 or 5 years older than me, and he was like the real life Goose. He was just this dude. He may or may not have been in a gang at one point in time, and he always wrapped the bandana tight around his head and had a knife in every pocket, that kind of shit. But And I went to his place once years later, and I said, "Hey, you got to watch this movie." And he loved it, man. He's like, "Goose is my boy." I said, "You are Goose, Dave." That's why I chose the movie. But that was all. That was just part of the ritual. You come over to my house, you have to watch Deadbeat at Dawn.
Yeah, I mean, do you I mean, at this stage, you know, obviously with Impetigo, like you know what I mean, like the horror thing is inexplicably like tied in with it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
Not just due to
I'm sort of
the
happy about that, because I don't know if we were the first, but there weren't a lot of bands doing
no.
And I think we had a I think we had a good kind of, you know, based on your favorite horror film or based on my idea of a horror film, and here's a true crime thing, and
mixed with something you never even heard of, you know? So you heard like a sample and you're like, I don't even know this, you know what I mean? Like, what is this? What sample is this?
And that was when the samples really became part of the game.
Right.
We
call it a sample now, but
like the guinea pig sample.
Yeah, choosing a soundbite or whatever, it was like writing a song. We were very, very, very careful with it. After the demo,
right?
Which and Mark chose all those on his own. Most of them, some Rawhead Rex. The rest of them came from a tape that I haven't seen anywhere in years, and I don't even know
this demo, right?
Anymore. Yeah, it's from a movie called Chillers, and it was kind of like an omnibus thing. You know, it's like 4 or 5 stories in it. And you're going to have a hard time driving that vehicle without any internal organs. That was from that movie. There's some stuff from Rawhead Rex in there. But it was like after that, then we were like, okay, we got to be really, 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 really distinctive about this. And I have, you know, some of it, I can't remember. I had tapes and tapes of these sound bites we collected, and like, okay, are we going to use this one or that one? And for Ultimo, yeah, there were specific songs that were going to have it, and I just like the way it went together. You know, I Bloody Pit of Horror, it was like from a couple Ilsa movies and Mark of the Devil, and we'd splice all that together. And the Zombie was, you know, it wasn't, we weren't like looking for a clip for this song. It was literally over a period of time. You're watching it. Sometimes I'd write a song and I'm like, I know what I'm going to use for this one. We're doing Zombie, which is actually about Zombie Ray from Splatteria, not the movie, but that's okay.
With the recording and did you guys come with the full length recording and with the sound bites and everything when you guys approached Wild Rags?
Yeah. So when we do the mastering, it'd be like we're mastering Ultimo, and I'm like, okay, and I'd pull the tape out, and I'm like, and I push play here and go to, and I'd have the little go 2 minutes into it. Okay, this is what we're going to use for this. And I had already had, yes, Jeff, you're right. That was Horror Express.
Jeff loves the horror.
Big hairy hand putting out the candle. Yep, that's the one.
Hell, the Jeff from New Zealand coming in.
Okay, Jeff, tell me this, because I used to know this movie and I forgot it too. What's the movie where there's a pair of binoculars? I think is it William Castle? I don't know. It's a pair of binoculars on top of a table, and the lady picks them up, or the guy picks them up, and the nails pop out. Put them in the eyes. I can't remember that. Let me know. Anyway, what was I talking about?
Getting back to the Wild Rags.
Like Dr. Fives.
Yeah. Well, it's a black and white movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But there was, you know, we in the studio, and I just have the tapes, and here you go. I'd already have them spliced, or we didn't like have the whole thing. And I had them all queued up, and exactly this start to finish, just drop this in here. And then for horror, of course, every song has a soundbite or an intro to it. And that was by design, and I had those already laid out. Some of them directly have something to do with the song, and some of them are like, we're going back to Deadbeat at Dawn, and I've kind of before too. It's like the intro Deadbeat at Dawn before I worked for the Street Cleaner. It could have been Necromantic, but
yeah,
it would have been in German.
Yeah, I was going to ask the could have beens, would have beens, but
yeah. Well,
there's a lot to ask here. You know, there's a lot of subject matter.
I already had the guinea pig quote in there, which had nothing to do with staff terrorism, but was cool and it worked. So I used
that was one of the bizarre ones to me.
That's
I was like,
the deepest cut.
Yeah. Sate.
What about the producer who you worked with at the time in the recording studio? Was he kind of like, whoa, what are you doing here?
Well, the first one, yeah, absolutely. Kurt Scheinfeld, nice enough guy at a fantastic facility, but he I don't know. It's
the same old story. They don't quite get it because it's death metal.
Nobody really got death metal at the time.
Right.
I mean, a lot of other bands can tell you, it's like they'd go walk into a studio and what are you guys doing? It's like, it's real noisy and it's real fast. Okay. And that's why a lot of early stuff is just across the board as far as sound quality. It's like, and that's what I love about it. I take exception to the currently recognized Morrisound was the sound of death metal, because it wasn't.
No.
Morrisound was not the sound of death metal. It's like
death metal was like a juxtapose of like weird
Horrors of the Black
recorded
Museum.
stuff.
Yep, Sly, you're right. Horrors of the Black Museum. That's the movie with the binoculars and the. Okay, now I'll forget these. So yeah, that's right, Jeff. You got it too. All right, you guys get a prize.
Yeah, you get a death metal podcast shirt.
All right, so it's across the board. Like, you hear the Ratravor demo, the first one,
right?
And you're like, that fucking sounds great. Those guys probably fought tooth and nail to get it to sound even close to what it sounded like, because you walk into a place for $20 an hour. You're kind of at their mercy. They say they want to, you're the customer, and they say they want to help you get the sound you want.
Right. But they've been recording rock and poser bands beforehand.
Yeah.
They're confused by the drop fucking,
you don't throw a fit. And sometimes it turns out wonderful. It's one of the best, two of the best recordings from the same year, like 87, is, of course, the Repulsion Horrified in Michigan, and then Jim Jones and the Kool-Aid Kid from the same, maybe the year before, in Michigan, different studio. The sound is perfect. I don't know how Scott or any of the guys from Jim Jones walked into the studio and got the sound they wanted out of it, or if it was even the sound they wanted at all. Scott would probably be like, man, I don't know. But Scott did the dual. I was talking to him. You plugged in your 2 bass tracks. Yep, that's right. And I did that for Horror of the Zombies. I actually bought a Rickenbacker that had 2. Oh yeah, the pencil cup. I had a Rickenbacker that had 2 outputs, so I could plug one in to the board and one into a blown up, or one into the bass amp, and I could get both sounds like Repulsion did. But Kurt had definitely had the facility that he could, get us to sound like we wanted.
Was this the studio that was attached to the record? The place that sold amplifiers?
That was later. Album. Nope.
Okay.
This is in a guy's house, and my bass Ginger had some technical difficulties, so I had to borrow someone else's bass, and that's a lot of us have been there. What was different about their bass from one album to the other? Well, it wasn't my bass for one thing, and two, I didn't know what the heck I was doing on the first album. But Kurt was. Mark and I had a mix that we were kind of happy with, but we just wanted the guitars a little bit louder. Just bring it up a little more in your face, man. And we sat down, we went back, and this is our dime. We're paying for everything.
Right.
And I think the total cost came out to, we had to sell some shit to come up with the $400 or $500 it cost to make that album.
Right. Was this a connection you had with Richard C. beforehand through distribution and demos, or was this something?
Yeah, just from writing to him and ordering shit from him, and he knew Mark from the zine, and we were all kind of in contact from that. So we went to Kurt and said, Kurt, we want the guitars louder and more in your face. We just want to, let's run it through one more time, and let's just boost that shit. And he's like, well, you need the pencil cup speech. The sound is like a pencil cup. It's like we only have so much room, and you can only put so much pencils in.
Right.
And I don't know what the fuck we were thinking, but we let him, fuck around with the drums instead of the guitar.
Okay.
Let's just compress the drums a little bit to make the guitar sound more distinct. Didn't work. None of it did. I have come to appreciate the way it turned out just for what it is, because if we hadn't done it, then it never would have happened. But the remix or the original mix, which is on the box set, I still think sounds a lot better as far as over. It doesn't sound that much better is the problem. So because we wanted the guitars a little out in your face. Now the other place where we did Horror of the Zombies, we actually recorded Faceless there first to give the guy a tryout.
Was that considered the promo demo 90? Was that before?
No, that was.
I saw that in the Discogs.
The promo demo. Well, there was 2 promo demos, and there were 2. It
was unfamiliar to me as an Impetigo fan.
It had
I was like, "What's this promo demo?"
There's actually 2 or 3 different ones, and Discogs had. Okay. I don't know who put that in there, but the box set has the actual cover of the demo that we used. And there were a couple different versions. Like we'd recorded some stuff for Giallo that we never released. We recorded for compilation tracks, and so there were those. And then there was some rough mix tracks from Ultimo, the original mix that we put with the
because the record had record tracks, and then the tape had its own tracks too. And was the stuff from the Whisper of the Darkness? Was that recorded?
That was a different thing.
Previous?
The Whisper of Darkness was a remix of the Giallo. We actually took the Giallo demo. We had the master tapes, and we went to the same guy, Dave Jost, and we remixed it and rearranged the samples. And we cut it real tight so it would fit. All 4 songs would fit on a 7-inch.
On a 7-inch, right? So that was kind of done before the record.
Yeah, well. Yeah,
it came out after the record.
But it came out after because
this is what we're talking about. This release right here.
Yeah, there you go. It's really
with
hard
a very lurid cover drawn by you.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because that Whisper of Darkness only put out 3 7-inches. Us, Nunslaughter, and Funebra. And that was it. That was actually deal was done before the
Wild Rags thing.
But when we went in the studio for Horror, we gave this guy a tryout and we recorded the Faceless EP.
Oh, okay.
That was Mark Rubel's tryout. And Mark Rubel was heavily recommended me by a lot of people from the area, particularly my friend Sheldon, who's no longer with us, who owned a record store in Champaign. And I used to go hang out with him a lot of time. And Mark and I had both heard great things about Mark Rubel. We went to visit him. We talked to him. We set up time to do the Faceless EP. And we went and recorded. So let's see how this goes. We're real happy the way it turned out. We didn't dick around too much. The only dicking around we did was Sinister Urge Faceless, which is one of my favorite songs I ever wrote and also one of my least favorite songs. I was trying to make a song like Entombed, Clandestine Era, okay? I tried. It turned out okay, but that's what it was. Very difficult for us to recreate that live, let me tell you. So we never did. And it turned out really good. We had a good experience with him. So we went back. We had some ideas. And he was like, fucking A, let's do it. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, I said, I want to run the vocals through a guitar amp with a blown speaker. And he said, I have one. And he actually had a couple. We tried them out. And there was one I liked better. So all my vocals were recorded through an amp with a blown out speaker, with a mic, not into the board, but with a mic in front of an amp with a blown out speaker. We double tracked the bass. We created all of the sounds for Canterbury Ballet with instruments and junk he had. It used to be, it was in a building, used to have a movie theater in it. So the basement was from the 30s or 40s, had dirt on the floor, huge columns, and there was a lot of rubble and old movie shit down there. So we used all this stuff. We were actually, all of us were throwing bottles and bricks into a.
That's what that recording is?
Steel drum. Yeah. And the native sound.
But it was like a whole soundscape mixed in with your record.
And I was just like, I had this idea in my head, didn't talk to any of the other guys about it. And I said to Rubel, I said, here's what I want to do with this. And we actually literally started building it piece by piece as we were getting ready to record it. I wanted this, I wanted that. And I said, and I need some sound effects. And Kurt had a really extensive sound effects studio collection in his studio. We did the first album. So the intro to Bitch That's Mucus Monster from Hell was created by me using his sound effects CDs and my own. I laid all that. I said, have the beakers got to fall over here. You hear the bubbling sound. You hear the slime. You hear the beast born. It was all from the sound effects CDs. And I did some of the sound effects with my mouth in addition to the beast noises and vocals. But Mark had all this stuff. He had a record that was like not a world music record, but it was like it was from the 50s, and he had a couple of them, and the noises in Canterbury Ballet are like layered excerpts from those records. So it sounded, so you can't trace back
the singing of like the Cannibal Tribe stuff.
Yeah, that's all from this record of music from
like Ethiopia. A Martin Denny kind of record, like an Exotica record.
Something. Well, no, not even that. It was more like a Time Life or Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh, okay.
Even on your first record, you had the song with Bloody Mess and Scabs, and that had a lot of like, it was like the song just like kind of just stopped, and it just
we did the noise. That was the Plasmatics did that, and well, we could tell what each other was doing though. Plasmatics couldn't, but we could. I'm just like, y'all just get nuts, and I was there to do my Frank Zappa thing, going crash, crash, crash.
And there was people yelling and shit in the background.
Yeah. We were all making noises. Yeah, every time Scotty would play a solo, he's looking at me through the glass, and I'm making faces and doing this and do that to him. It was great. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, every recording, every record, like it has like a signature thing going on, whether it be the first demo, the all we need is cheese type thing, or like, your 7 inches, Ultimo has its own thing. What could you talk to that Ultimo, the unreleased cover? Like, what was the
so
the band cover, because something was on there.
And again, I gotta apologize to everybody. A buddy of mine was giving me a hard time about this online. I'm sorry about all the different fucking covers. Okay, what can I do? I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry. I know it's confusing, but anyway. So the original cover for Ultimo was it's something I had in my mind, the whole wall of woe and shit, and tie this stuff up, and somebody eating a penis here, cannibals raping a girl here, torsos sitting around a campfire, very Paul Gauguin. I was not a colorist, but I was a Gauguin aficionado, and I did the drawing while at work. I used to run a gas station. Excuse me. I used to run a gas station, and I drew this while I was working, and I sent it to my friend Cannibal Jim, who's also gone now. And he did the colors with Dr. Martin's dyes, and I told him, I said, just make it Gauguin. I said, Paul Gauguin, because Gauguin did a lot of cannibals and natives and stuff like that too, so it kind of made sense. And it turned out really good. I really liked it. I said, yeah, this is lurid. This is third world cannibal films in 1/12x12 package. It was only, I think the actual size. So I think, Leon, you have it, right?
I used to. Like the original art, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
Did you end up with it? I can't remember.
Around the time that some of that art was going up for sale, we were saving up to buy our house. So we were trying to keep spending to a minimum. And then I was seeing all these things hitting eBay and like, eating my heart out because they were going and I couldn't get them, and I would have wanted them because it was at the top.
So there was an original black and white of that before it got the color?
No, he colored my black and white art. Jim did, and we sent it to, I think the size was actually like 16 by 16. It was a little bit larger than. And then I sent it to Rich, and he called me. He said he had just signed a deal with Important Records. So Important was going to distribute Wild Rags nationwide. We were really excited about it, and he was too. And probably about a week after he signed this deal, he gets this album cover from me on something he's committed to putting out. And he called me, and he said, Stevo, I got to tell you something. I said, what? The cover. I love the cover. I think the cover is great. This is not going to get in very many stores. And I'm like, well, okay, that's fine. He's like, well, no. I got to let you know, because some people, if I tell them the record's not going to get very many stores, they're going to be upset about that. And you're saying that's fine. So I need to be sure we're on the same page. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So, because I got this deal with Important. And they're going to distribute my stuff everywhere. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me that, so let me get you straight. You're telling me there's a lot of people aren't going to carry the album because of the artwork. And he's like, right. And I said, doesn't bother me. He's like, are you sure? I said, Rich, does it bother you? No, man. It's your record. You do what you want. Doesn't bother me at all. I'm just telling you, when you see the sales, you're not going to see as much, because Important's not going to be sending it to very many stores, because they're going to, that's got penises, it's got rape. Everybody was
it's crazy shit going on
about
the cover.
Penises than they were about the rape.
All movie related kind of themes.
Yeah. It was just very, very
sleazy as shit, like Cannibal Ferox.
And he was just trying to let me know, hey, if this thing doesn't sell as well as you want it to in stores, that's why. And I'm like, fucking Rich, I don't care. This is what I want. Okay, we're on the same page. We're good. And Richard was really cool about that. He's just letting you have it straight, which is why when other people say he was never straight with them, I don't get it. He was always straight with us. Mark and I, everyone's different, I guess, and everyone's got different expectations. But he called me.
He had a solid deal with Wild Rags compared to the narrative of the Wild Rags
scene. When he didn't pay Ruble called me upset. I called Richard. I said, Richard, pay this fucking guy now. And he did.
Right.
He right away. Ruble, he was a little bit late with Ruble. Whatever. It happens, right? But Ruble's gone now too, incidentally. All these dead people in my life. What the fuck?
Yeah, they're there for me too.
And, it's kind of funny, before I get off topic too much, Dave Jost, the guy that recorded the Giallo demo for us and who helped us with Horror of the Zombies, he came into the studio. Ruble recorded, but we asked Dave to come and help us because we want to make sure we were getting everything we wanted out of it and paid him with a bag of weed. He himself was a murder-suicide in the suburbs of Chicago a couple years ago. I found out he killed his wife and kids and then killed himself.
Oh shit!
So, anyway, Ruble was great to work with. Everything we did with him worked out great. It cost us $1,600 total. Cost Rich,
right?
Ruble
we're talking about Horror of the Zombies,
wasn't paying him on time, and Rich took care of that. So,
are we talking about Ultimo or is Horror of the Zombies?
Talking about Horror of the Zombies. Okay. So the cover. Sorry, I got lost.
It's fine.
Richard gets a cover. Okay, it's fine. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, he calls me and he says, I've got more bad news about the cover. Not from Spinal Tap, right? He's like, the people that do all my printing, and they're dirt cheap. It's the only way I can afford to do this. They say they don't want to touch this thing with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
I said, all right, well, what are my options? Can you take it somewhere else? And he's like, no, I can't afford that. I'm footing a bill here, so I can't afford that. I got to stick with this. I said, okay, let me see what I can do. So I was in my living room and I got another piece of paper out and I sat down with a pencil and I started working on version 2, which was more of directly a Cannibal Holocaust. It's a pile of stuff. You can see a film canister of the Green Inferno and
right.
And I called Cannibal Jim and I said, my brother, I got an emergency. Are you going to be working tomorrow? And he said, yeah. He worked at a comic book store.
Okay.
And I sat down in my living room and I sat down and I drew this thing until it was done. I drove it to Peoria and he colored it in about 2 days, called me up and I came in, picked it up. And I actually think I mailed it to Rich from Peoria just to get it there. And he said, okay, this is fine. And they didn't have a problem with the cassette cover, but That was
because it folded down inside.
Yeah, this is a penis, you know. The guy getting his cock eaten by a cannibal. It wasn't anybody getting raped on it. So so that's what happened with the original cover.
Yeah, I mean it's like kind of in Impetigo lore, you know, that you guys had such a. The funny thing is, you mentioning this cover you can't print. You drew a cover for Gut, which I was given to put out as a 7-inch, the hyperintestinal vulva desecration 7-inch. Now I took that around to all the printers and said, "Hey, I want to print this," and they're like, "No way, dude, no way." And the most common one I got was, "My wife works here, so we can't make this." Basically, so that was the main excuse. We can't make this because my wife works here.
Yeah.
And eventually, I found some shady color copiers were just coming out at that time, and I found like a singular, very far from my house, color copier place that did full color copies, and I was able to print out the full 7 to make the 7-inch. And even there, people were looking and saying, "What the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, what are you printing over there?" You know. They saw this lurid fucking fucked up scene going on, and they wanted to know. And they're like, "Hey, let me see that." And I'm like, you know, because I'd been through so much bullshit already. I'm like,
kicked out of Kinko's for printing porn or whatever.
Yeah, it was like a Kinko's type place, but it was like I'm like a independent version, you know. And I was like, I don't want to show you this, you know. But
it was. There was somebody at one time who shall remain nameless who challenged me on the fact that said, "Oh, probably Rich was pulling your leg. There probably wasn't a problem with the printer at all." And I'm like, "No, I absolutely believe that."
I mean, I believe that just because myself with that 7-inch cover.
It was crazy times. I mean, I don't know if I mean,
McCobb all that retained. I mean, even to this day,
McCobb had trouble. Their first record with Nuclear Blast was Sinister Slaughter,
right?
And they had trouble getting that record out of Germany because there was a in the cover, you know, the Sgt. Pepper's cover, there was like a picture of Hitler on it or something.
Yeah.
And they had a hell of a time.
Well, it's kind of amazing that this came out of Germany in general because the cover was also so lurid at the time.
He was kind of under the radar. I mean, you know, it is the Whisper in Darkness after all.
Yeah, it's Whisper.
It's not the Nuclear Blast.
Yeah, you got any questions I think about the covers or anything? I got to take a squirt.
What's that?
I was asking the Doc Holocausto if he had any questions about the covers.
You got to drill. I got it. You got to drain the snake. All right.
Yeah.
No, I mean the one that blew my mind was when the original Horror of the Zombies cover came out. You know, versus like that crazy painted one with the 4 or 5 zombies on the cover.
That was
No, I was going to say, like, I think that
talking about the reissue.
Cover. I think was when was the first time that came out when Billy put it out from Razorback.
No, Wild Rags. The Wild Rags version had the painted. That was Cannibal Jim painted that. I did the drawing, and then he did all the. But I just did a sketch. I let him go nuts with it, and
okay.
Then the Billy took, so the artwork that was on Billy had the zombies and the naked girl on the ground.
Right.
That was
kind of burial ground vibe zombies.
Yeah, that was a t-shirt design that we had done previously. And I think he had, I think Ray from Metal Curse may have colorized that. I'm not 100% sure. I know Ray did the Giallo colorization. He may have done that that zombies and the girl, but that was just a t-shirt that we had printed back then. That actually was never used for a cover for anything. And then when Billy Morbid didn't even use it, and then I think Morbid versions had the Chaz Balin.
Yeah, that crazy Chaz Balin. Cemetery scene.
Yes, and then when with Zombie Rob on it, I love it, man. That's my buddy. That's my buddy Rob. from North Street Records used to have a gas station shirt with the. It was actually a Mojo Nixon shirt, I think, a gas station style shirt. It had a name patch on it that said Rob, and when I drew that zombie in the Split with Blood, I put a little patch on it that said Rob, and we call it Zombie Rob after that. And then when Chaz did the cover, the zombie on he had the Rob on his head. I'm like, oh, fucking A, man.
Had you told him to do that, or was it just like a coincidence, or
what's that? Well, the Rob?
Yeah.
Mark, he may have talked to Mark about yeah, you should do that, and he might have just saw it, and all that, and blah, blah. Yeah, that's right. So Chuck from Macabre did print all of our shirts back in the day, by the way.
Okay.
All of them. He until many years later in the 2000s when Bruce Reeves of Warlord Clothing. Hey, Cubs. Yeah, they did not win today. You got the W's, though.
I see that.
I got Sammy Sosa back here, too. You can't really see him. He's out there lurking in the darkness. But, yeah, it was, they did all our shirts. And until Warlord Clothing did some for us in the 2000s, every Impetigo shirt, except for the ones Wild Rags made, which was fine. They were all printed by Chuck. Chuck did shirts for a lot of bands in the early 90s, throughout the 90s, actually. He did a pretty good business of it. And it was good for us as Macabre fans because we'd go hang out with them. They have like 35 different shirts. And they're like,
yeah. Can we talk about, too, your logo? Because obviously your logo art alone is its own thing here. This, I guess, being more original.
Yeah, that is... I also drew this at work at the gas station. I liked our previous logo we used was basically a second logo we had from the Giallo demo. Or the first logo looked more like a thrash metal logo, and then for Giallo I did like a more of a creepier, meltier, drippier, waxy thing. This was I did the outline first because that was my drawing style at the time, and I did the arch because a lot of bands were doing the arch. So the arch is kind of important to some of us. Some bands do the A, and some bands do the V, and some bands do the arch.
Yes,
and I thought we were an arch band, so I did that. And then I was going to just do the outline of the letters like that and do my pointillism and do some different shading patterns, kind of like make it look like. And then I'm like, well, if I do that, then maybe I should make it veins, not like, veins all over. And then I'm like, no, that'll look too much like cracks. And then I thought, what if I do body parts? I said body parts would be good. So, and I didn't really do I don't remember doing any sketches of it beforehand. I just remember sitting there with the paper and going, okay, I'm going to put an arm up here and a skull over here in the corner with some hair. And then this is going to be intestines and another foot right there. As I went, I did the stuff.
Melted faces, a lady half torso, like
I did the rib cage
on top of the eye.
The bottom of the E looked like a foot, so I'm like, okay, let's do that. And then there was the top of the E looked like another cannibal head. So
little intestines everywhere.
There's an axe in there, and then that was literally I drew it freehand with the pencil sketch that way. And then I just filled it all in.
You stayed very busy with the artwork as far as like not only conceptually doing your band music, but doing the artwork as well for your releases. You know what I mean? I remember getting a sticker or something from you guys back in the day of like this. You know what I mean?
That's the Zombie Rob picture. Yep, that's from the lyric insert for the Antifado Split with Blood.
Right. And then, I mean, as far as you guys through the years, obviously, maybe, there's so many early photos you sent me. I guess a lot of them made to that box set and stuff. But obviously, you got the stash here. You guys look probably like very young. What age group would you guys say you're here?
I'm 20 years old.
Okay.
And Mark is 19. Mark's a year younger than me, and Dan is, oh, good Lord. Dan's always 16 or 17 here.
Okay.
Dan, I think Dan graduated high school a year or two before we recorded the album. So it might be more like 17 or 18. I don't know. I remember Dan's graduation. I just don't remember what year it was. We had a party at his dad's house, and Naked Hippie played.
Sweet.
He might be more like 16 or 17 there, but not too much younger than
that. When you were doing artwork too, was this a piece of artwork from the earliest times?
That was my good buddy Jim, and I had heard Regurgitation on the Satan's Revenge volume or Thrash Metal Attack, one of the new Renaissance compilations.
Right.
And I thought, this is fucking great. So I wrote him, because his address was on there, and I wrote him a letter, and I said, I don't know how much your demo is, but here's $3. Can I get your demo? Because I love this shit. And he wrote me back right away, sent me the demo, like a 6-page letter, a bunch of stickers. And I wrote him back, and then we wrote back. We were talking on the phone before too long. We used to talk once a week. And I wrote him back. I said, thanks for the demo. I love it. It's fucking sick. I said, your cover's horrible. I don't know if you've ever seen the cover of the first Regurgitation demo, but like, I think like bass player Mike McNeese might have drawn it. I don't know. It's like, it was horrible. I said, your cover's horrible, man. Your music's so amazing, but your cover's just is terrible. I said, and I told him, I said, can I draw a different cover for this demo for you? Because this is terrible. I heard you on a new Renaissance record and your demo cover looks like shit. And I wasn't that kind of a guy. He was really cool. And I really, really liked the demo. I mean, I thought that was Regurgitation. It was just one of the most amazing things I'd ever heard in my life. And I'm like, I like this so much. I can't stand that you have a shitty demo cover. Can I redraw it for you? I would do it. I would draw it for nothing. I'll do it. And he's like, well, no, because we don't like that demo anymore. And we're really not going to, send it out because we're working on a new one. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So can I draw that? He's like, I would love it if you draw that. Can you do a lyric sheet? Yeah, I can do that. Can you do? He said, it's called Bathrooms Rule. And like, I just want a dude puking, like by a toilet puking. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll take care of it. And I drew the Bathrooms Rule there. And that demo cover was later Turbo Records was originally called Shithouse Records, and they used that art as their logo without asking any of us. Anyway, so I did the demo cover, and I drew the picture that you had up there of Jim, Veg, and Ralph.
Yes.
And I just kind of drew that from. He sent me a photo of them, and I made that on my own, and then I did the lyric sheet, and he sent me the lyrics, and he just kind of hand wrote them, and I just on my typewriter I did them, and I kind of arranged them in with the other stuff. And as much as I liked his first demo, the second demo was outrageously awesome.
Be the cover.
Bathrooms Rule. Yep.
You did the logo too?
Yep, I did it. That's nice. That's my work there.
Yeah. So this was 1987.
Yeah, it sure
you were
was.
doing demo work for a New Jersey, grind, a band that's kind of influential in a weird way.
Kind of very. I mean, yeah, Jim, I don't know what possessed him he was really into Soothsayer and shit, and they had some abnormally fast stuff for the time. Loved the Canadian shit.
Right.
And he was one of the best guitar players I'd ever heard in my life. He was just so fucking good and so fast. See, Jim could play faster than, he went through a lot of people working with him because they could not play fast. And Ralph was the first guy that was just like, yeah, I can do this. I don't know if Ralph didn't always use the bass drum. He would do his blast beats like and then just do the bass for effect sometimes. But Jim would play this riff like like the riff in Pesticide or
Yeah. How much who was rubbing off on who when it came to like Uniforce and Mark Zine? Like, were you guys trading information? Because obviously Uniforce started very early too,
so
probably
Mark,
86, 87, right?
Yeah, Mark and I met in college,
Right.
And he was writing all these letters, and he knew a guy I knew, Matt Rousey, who had a zine called Grinding Over, and it was a punk rock fanzine or whatever. And Mark had run into this guy, and Mark's like, "Hey, I can do some interviews with you. I'm pen pals with all these bands." And Matt was like, "Oh, thank you, please, because there's only like 6 bands in 6 counties around here." I said that would be great. And Mark basically took over that issue of Grinding Over. It was like 90% Mark's interviews with other bands. I call it the unofficial Uniforce number 0. Because it was Uniforce, but it was just called something else. And then Mark's talking to me, said, "I think I'm going to start I had been doing a zine at the time too, Splatter Zine."
Right.
And Mark said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to start my own zine." And I'm like, that's fucking great. Cause why not? I mean, you made this.
You did all the work of the other one.
So, and Mark, and so I was living in Decatur when he said he wanted to do it. And I can't remember. He might've wanted to call it something else at first, like United Forces.
Okay.
But Uniforce is kind of a contraction of that. And he's like, I want to cover with I want a skinhead on there and a metalhead. It's like, yeah, I can do that. So I drew that cover and I did the logo.
Did the logo, yeah.
In it, stuff, yeah. On my kitchen table at Decatur. And then you see, I had moved to Bloomington there. This is around the time we were doing Impetigo for the first time. And then I moved to Bloomington, and I actually stopped doing my zine right after that. And Mark did Uniforce also. Sometimes I'd be over at his house though and helping him with the layout and stuff like that. And
what about musically? Were you guys exchanging like,
all the time,
check this band out?
All the time. I'd show up at his house and he'd have a bag full of tapes. Hey, look, here's a couple of records for you. And then I'd bring him.
That way you guys could dub each other's stuff off each other.
Oh, yeah.
Tape trading party.
Every time my tape trader volume was like this and his was like that. I mean, I eventually got there, but at the time, yeah, he'd get tapes and he would just immediately just running copies off over and handing them to me. Stuff like all this shit. He would just hand me a stack of tapes and say, "Here, I copied all this stuff for you."
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
And so yeah, I basically got just about copies of everything he had for a while there.
Do you feel like anything that passed through like Uniforce or the early days kind of rubbed off on you guys musically? Because there's been, as time went on, because there seems a sound that was, say, like on Ultimo, kind of by Horror of the Zombies. I felt more of like a, like an earlier day stuff. I kind of felt more like a horror macabre kind of mixed with the death metal thing.
Yeah.
Then by the time like Horror of the Zombies hit, I was starting to feel like more of like a pungent stench thing hitting a little,
Yeah, well, we were definitely listening to a lot of stuff, and influences were building, and hey, I really like this. Hey, I want to try that, and all that kind of stuff. And we were also getting better at playing together as a band.
Right.
There's some of that stuff and sometimes I push it too far, like Sinister Urge, Faceless. I'm like, well, yeah, I can do a song like Entombed. It's like, well, it was a little more complicated than Entombed. Might have been more like an At the Gates song, actually, or Grotesque, than it was Entombed. But you know what I mean? It just had a lot of stuff in it. And, but that was a good exercise because I'm like, that's a little farther than I want to go with this. We were getting more into a pure grinding death metal sound.
Right.
And, enough speed, to drive everyone crazy, but a little slower and heavier,
bigger, obviously a bigger sound.
Yeah,
a little more coherent
than
the first record.
Autopsy. It was Autopsy, and I'm like, listen to this shit, bombs. Da, 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 da,
and then the cover, obviously amazing zombies, and
that was painted. I did a sketch for that, and then Cannibal Jim did the painting. He did all the painting, and it's perfect. I've received some light-hearted criticism over the years on that cover, and I think some people were maybe disappointed that it wasn't drawn just by me.
It wasn't this.
Well, that's I could never be an artist like as good as that. But it was the Horde of the Zombies was originally supposed to be at the end of the movie itself. The Horde of the Zombies, the girl's laying on the beach and the zombies are looking down on her, and the frame freezes and they roll the credits, and that's what the cover was going to be. And then I said, let's do like a Zombies in the Mist kind of a thing. I said, Jim, I got 4 zombies here, and like all different kinds of zombies, like a Romero zombie here, an Italian zombie here. Yes, the Ghostly Galleon, which is probably the weirdest of the Templar films, but it's fun. But the cover was when Jim showed it to me, I'm like, this is great. I said, it's kind of it's got a comic book art sensibility to it. It's not a realist picture at all, and it's a little surreal if you think about the way the faces look, and it's not just a painting of a zombie to look just like a photo of a zombie or whatever. It's more imaginative, and it's pulpier, I think, than if I would have just taken a picture from a zombie movie and had someone
exactly
make that copy of it. So
so I mean, definitely, I mean, beyond just doing art for like your band too, you had done art for like Exhumed, the Excreting Innards,
that was fun.
7-inch.
That was
you did a lot of Psycho stuff.
I think Paul just wrote me a letter and said, hey, I'm in this band Exhumed, can you do a cover for us? And I said, sure, absolutely. I'd never even heard him, I don't think. So just a cool guy, I like the name of the band. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, like you guys were pretty prolific as far as like your old like shows too, leading up to the band and doing things. Was this one of the earlier shows for you guys?
Yeah,
let me see here.
At one point in time, that was in like 89 or 90.
Okay.
So we'd been together a few years, but we weren't playing at the gallery we weren't playing in Bloomington Normal anymore, because it was fun playing there. Our first couple of years, like 87, 88, we played a lot in Normal, and it was fun.
Right.
And
wasn't there some kind of incident? You played like this, like a big, I don't know what you would call it, like a town like thing, and then showed up with like a bunch of flyers with a guy with his like.
Yeah, that was we were working on Ultimo, and I was really happy. I was doing an album, and finally, and we were friends with the guys at Mother Murphy's, a record store, and the record store was owned by a guy named Cup Chang, who's also dead. And he also sold, he didn't just sell records there, he sold smoking paraphernalia. Okay. And there was a lot of shit going on at the time over stores who sold marijuana
paraphernalia.
Products, yeah. Right. I mean, it's funny thing is it's legal in Illinois now.
Yeah, now.
At the time, they would intermittently come down on head shops.
Yes.
And this was a time of turmoil for the owners of head shops. And Cup was a nice enough guy. He also owned the gallery, which is where we were playing a lot.
Right.
And but we were releasing an album Wild Rags was good enough to do it. It was early 1990. We were very excited about this. And I wanted, we hadn't been playing a lot in town recently. I think the last time we played a show at the gallery in December '89, and it was like our first show there in almost a year. We played at a couple other places locally. And we played there, and it was the show where the blue tongue photo on the back of Ultimo came from.
Okay.
And and I made a flyer saying that, hey, we got an album coming out on Wild Rags. You can get it here in town. You can only get it at Mother Murphy's. Right? And I used the penis picture from the cassette, guy getting his penis cut off. And the story goes, the town of Normal saw this flyer and basically let Cup know that, hey, under no circumstances were they going to sit back and let him sell what they consider to be pornography in his store. So, and he was already under heat for smelling smoking accessories. And he was a dishonest businessman anyway. So he was already getting heat for a lot of other stuff. And we have a letter from the town of Normal that they sent him saying that, hey, this wasn't going to be cool. But I think there was a lot more to it than that, but I can't prove anything. So all I can say is that Cup came to Mother Murphy's and he said, you take all these flyers, they all come down. We don't sell this record here. You don't play at the gallery anymore.
Okay. And, you were banned from the gallery just from your art.
And that's why I dedicated Staff Terrorist to him, because he had a kitchen in the gallery and he sold food. And it was pretty much like, you know,
human meat.
Yeah. So, but getting banned from the gallery was the best thing that ever happened to us, because we couldn't play local anymore, and that was fine. But you know, we played a few shows with Macabre already in Chicago, and we played in Indianapolis a couple times. We didn't need it. It was we had played a lot, but we got our, we worked it out. We had our practice.
Let's talk to a few of these shows, because I don't know year wise, but let me try to bring them up.
That's our second show ever.
This was your second show?
This is our second show ever. And this was at in a parking lot in Normal. They had a trailer there, and the town of Normal put it on.
Rocky's parking lot.
Or whatever. Yeah, it was just in the parking lot. They had a trailer there. It was an outdoor show. All four of these bands. And this was our second show ever. We had a really, really, really good soundboard tape of it that we used to as our first demo, our live demo. So pre-show outside, end of October. It was cold as fuck, but that's all right. Further action. This is at the Electric Coffee. Okay, so Electric Coffee was in a building in downtown Bloomington called the Eddy Building. And the Eddy Building was kind of infamous in the Bloomington Normal punk rock / alternative music scene, if you want to call it that, because in the penthouse of the Eddy Building was an art space called Hell, where you could go there at any given time on the weekends usually and see a bunch of performance art. They had posters up. If somebody's apartment, they just opened up for people to come over. Okay. And I met Jason, who was a singer, Naked Hippie. I met him at a show in the Eddy Building. It wasn't in Hell, though. It was in a place the floor below Hell. I had met him for the first time there. Anyway, we had a practice place at the Eddy Building for a while. And on the floor, 2 floors above our practice place was where Electric Coffee was. It was basically an open warehouse in this building.
Okay.
And NoFX played there. Mannequin Beach played there. Pretty
exploitive flyer. What's worse than a poke in the eye? Thickening hard, make your stomach turn and flesh crawl. Little original Impetigo art there.
Yeah, that was so the guy who's getting stabbed there, that was actually a drawing I did for a band I never got off the ground way before Impetigo, and that was for Convulsions.
Okay.
But yeah, this Affirmative Action from New York. They play Electric Coffee. Mortar from Chicago played with us at Electric Coffee once or twice, as well as at the gallery. And Electric Coffee was a fun place. It was hot as hell in there. Dan almost died a couple times.
What about this show right here? This was the Monsters of Noise.
So this
Radiation Sickness, Skeletal Earth, Impetigo, and
Conjuration. So this is the first time we played Indianapolis, and this is a show put on by my good friend Doug Palmer from Radiation Sickness, and it was
shout out to Doug. Yeah, I know Doug.
Yeah, and this was at the Sherwood Club, and we he called up Mark and he said, man, we'd love to have you guys play. Skeletal Earth is coming, and we're playing. And I was like, fucking A, because to me, see, Radiation Sickness had a 7-inch coming out on Thrash Records or something. And I was like, fucking A, man, that's great. And Skeletal Earth, I thought, was one of the most important bands that were around at the time. I love their shit, even The Water Reeks. And I had only heard whispers about how great they were live, and they were from all the way down in Alabama. It was like a 10, 12-hour drive for them. Right. And so, we came to the show. We played this show, and the picture of us playing live that's on the inside of the Bowie Omega 7-inch, that was from this show.
Cool.
So this is
just the Monsters of Noise.
Yeah. Well, go back a minute though. This is the following year. Go back to the other one.
Wait, okay, the Affirmative one, you mean?
No, the next one, the Monsters of Noise. There you go. So we saw Skeletal Earth. I met Travis from Skeletal Earth. He's one of the coolest guys in the universe.
Yes.
And they were so fucking amazing live. If you ever saw Skeletal
I saw
Earth,
them in 1991 in Alabama in a fucking corn halo or whatever the fuck you call those things.
Unforgettable shit. And Conjuration are also a very, very good band that nobody knows anything about.
You don't see that name much.
They released 2 demos, and that was the logo. That was our interim logo that was on the inside of the Giallo demo that was done for us by Rot Flesh. I almost wanted to use this logo instead of mine for the other drawing we saw with the body, but I said, let me give it a shot with the body parts and see what happens here. So anyway, and then
this is an older one? Yeah.
This is the following year.
Okay.
Doug called us again. He's like, Repulsion,
Radiation Sickness, and Impetigo at the Ritz Music Hall.
Yep, they said they can't be. Repulsion broke up. He's like, no, they're back together. And I'm like, okay, awesome. Notice how you see it says Earache Combat. See, Combat had just signed a deal with Repulsion, and Repulsion really wasn't signed to Earache. They were on Bill Steers' label, which Earache distributed.
Right.
So that's a little bit of false advertising, Doug. I'm sorry, my friend, but it's okay. They may have told him to put that on there, but it's not. I would put it on there if I was him too. So,
and then everybody back then would use like cutouts from like magazines and comics to make like their flyers. We'd like just tape them together.
And then again, by then, Radiation Sickness had an album deal with a label in Germany. And we were like, fuck yeah, Old World Records.
Right.
And for this show, I borrowed my boss's truck. And it was the weekend of the time trials in Indianapolis, in May. And if you know anything about Indianapolis, you know that the weekend after the time trials is the Indianapolis 500.
Okay.
So nobody who lives in Indianapolis can afford or get into the Indy 500, kind of like me in the Kentucky Derby.
It like clogs up the whole city, but you can't go.
Yeah, but see, the time trials is when all the gearheads and so all the auto shops are closed on Sunday for the time trials. And I roll into town with my boss's truck that I borrowed, and my wheel bearing's on fire as soon as I hit the city limits. And we can't find anybody to fix it. So the guy at the Ritz Music Hall, who Doug worked with on putting the show on, has a buddy who knows something about cars. He comes over, he repacks my wheel bearing, and doesn't want any money for it. So I bought him a 6-pack of beer, and I appreciate that. So we almost didn't make it back. But yeah, it was a fantastic show. We met Repulsion for the first time, and to me, they were This was in 1990 or something, and they're already legends to me because,
right.
They were one of the reasons we existed. So,
but this was an interesting one too.
This was one of our shows with Mortar
at the gallery.
Mortar from Chicago. If you don't know, they were an amazing band, very, very fantastic live show. So they would come out and they played real fast and mid-place metal thrash kind of stuff. Very Chicago sound, so a lot of like Master and all that stuff.
Right.
And their singer, Dell, blew fire. He would, just like Gene Simmons. You can't do that shit.
Like a black metal show?
But yes. But you can't do that shit in clubs anymore, after the Great White thing. Rhode Island.
Yeah, after the White Lion show or whatever.
Yeah, right. That's what it was. But Mortar were great. They kind of had a lot of military apocalypse themes. Fantastic band. Really, really, really good live. They would swing their
What
guitar.
year was this? 88?
This would be 88,
December
87, 10th. 88. Yeah, 88, definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
This was before you were banned from the gallery.
And that's a flyer that
original flyer from the demo release.
Yeah, Mark made this flyer, and he just took a picture from the Japanese release, a basket case, put our logo over it, and then the stuff from the demo.
Still cool,
Yeah. What's in the basket?
Some of these old photos you sent me definitely go back in time.
This is actually me when I was playing with the Resonators. We were a garage punk band. Jeff from Naked Hippie played bass, and Rob played guitar, and I played guitar.
Yeah, I see your guitar there.
It's our buddy Ed Young on the vocals, and Tom Sparrow playing the drums. Tom Sparrow was the drummer in Act of God, the thrash band I was in for a while.
Okay.
But yeah, that's me. I'm probably playing the solo to Living in the Woods by the Amboy Dukes right there. I don't
shit. Know. Okay. You look about like 18, 20 years old there,
But of course I wore my Slayer shirt and Sam Hain shirt all the time. Hey, where did Doc go? Did he have to?
I don't know. Maybe Doc. Yeah, maybe you have to step away.
Yeah, this is it's like 87. Yeah, nice picture.
Yeah, it's a cool one. Here's a good one with you guys and members of Macabre.
And Chuck is holding a copy of Ronnie Ide's Morbid Mag, I believe.
Oh shit! Yes. I see. On the cover there it has.
This is at the Bone Center in Illinois State University. Yep, and they had just got done wowing the crowd with their teenage love anthems, and we're standing outside there. And Mark took this picture of us outside the show there after they were done playing.
Awesome shit. Yeah. You guys had definitely had a nice intertwined relationship with Macabre. Which record were you buying outside that show? Gloom?
Oh, it was the Grim Reality EP. The one
Reality?
They released it themselves, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't they release the first two records themselves?
Mm-mm.
If I'm not mistaken.
Gloom was after 1 or 2 years of selling Grim Reality on their own, they had recorded some songs that would be used on Gloom, and they released it as a shitless demo.
Oh, okay.
And then they finished those sessions, and that became what was Gloom, but they were signed to Vinyl Solution in the UK.
Oh, that's right.
Vinyl Solution release, and they had remixed Grim Reality about 3 or 4 times by then. They're never happy with the original mix. So Vinyl Solution reissued Grim Reality with different solos in them, and the remix, one of the remix versions, and with a couple extra songs from that were on the shitless demo.
Was there any other I never asked this, was there any other like label or interest before you did Wild Rags?
No, not at all. In fact, that's why we were so excited about to be quite fair, Richard was the kind of guy that was you had to campaign him. I'm sure there were some bands he'd contact right away and say, "Hey, I'd like to do a record with you guys," but
right.
You had to work on it too. We had been sending demos to labels galore, and nobody was interested. Nobody.
Right.
And Mark was, he had been pressing Rich for quite some time. Hey. And finally, Rich said, you know what, Mark, you're bugging the hell out of me. He said, now, the Whisper in Darkness wanted to put out a 7-inch, and we said, yeah, we'll remix songs from the demo for that. Rich said, I'll tell you what. He said, you guys got to pay for the studio. I'm not doing that. He said, I'll do a 12-inch EP with you, and we'll see how that goes. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. So Ultimo was originally going to be just a 12-inch EP.
Okay.
And when he announced in his magazine that he was going to be doing an EP with us, I guess he got a lot of response. I think mostly the locals. It was a lot of Los Angeles there was a lot of guys there who really, really, really liked us. The guys like Bruce Reeves, I always mention Bruce, the guys from Morgion, the Mine Rot guys, before the guys that would hang out in his store.
Right.
And when they found out he was going to do something with us, they're like, oh, fucking A. And then some other people had written letters to him, said, oh, this is great. This is fantastic. And I think it didn't. I mean, it was just like a couple weeks later, and he called up and he said, everybody's really, really says I've done something good here. So why don't we just make it an album instead of an EP? And we're like,
oh, shit.
Right on. So, yeah, so that's, and nobody was interested in us.
Were you in contact with some of the original like earache people, say like your Bill Steers and Phoenix?
Oh yeah, Bill and
or Napalm Death or these
Bill
bands.
And Mark and Bill and Lee, Mark and Lee were friends. I talked to Lee a couple of times on the phone.
Okay.
And I'd written some letters back and forth. We sent a demo to Earache. Nothing came from it. I think I used to write to Rich Militia even, I mean, there's some of those guys pen pals with briefly. The only one, Andy from Electro Hippies and later Nightmare Visions. Andy and I were really close. Andy was a really good friend, really good pen pal. I really liked hearing from him, getting the scoop. And then many years later,
it was something different back then, because you would write a letter to somebody and they would fill out a bunch of information inside the letter about bands and releases, and you wouldn't information you couldn't get anywhere else. Like, hey, Morbid Angels putting out a record,
you could talk on the phone and you hardly ran into them. So the letters were really long. And then, many years later, I run into Lee at a cathedral gig in Chicago, and he wanted to sign. He wanted Church of Misery, which I changed to Insomnia. He wanted us to sign with Rise Above, and I was like, "Oh hell yeah, yeah!" It was after this was recorded. We had changed our name to Insomnia after this was done. And
was this the original demo or something?
Yep. That's the first demo, the only demo, I guess, of the Moon.
The Moon.
And then, but then Insomnia, we kind of fizzled out relatively quickly after that. Never got that studio session done. But Lee was real excited. Lee loved our stuff, and he wanted us to be on his label, but I couldn't get it worked out. So.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't really talk about the Sergeant Rock thing much.
There you go. Well, FOAD just released this, the Sergeant Rock on LP. There's an LP and a CD with it, and a big booklet. That was before Impetigo. Obviously, I had known Mark in college, and we were friends, and I kind of blew college. I had to drop out really fast. And when I went back to Decatur to try and pick everything back up again, this guy that lived down the street from me that I had known for years was suddenly he was into the Slayer and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. I've been listening to stuff for a while. That's great. Sounds good. And I'd come over to his house with a bunch of tapes and turn them on to shit. And we'd sit around, drink beer, listen to, thrash.
You showed him the culture of like the dubbing of the cassette and the dubbing of the.
Heard
flyers,
or Death or Repulsion or anything like that. So I'm like, here, check this out. It was great. And he was in a band that used to be my band, that used to be his band. Long story, but and he was in a band called Ill Noise, and they were trying to play a few shows, and they had a new singer, and his brother, my good friend Jeff, was their drummer, and as he was my drummer when it was my band, and he's like, we're starting to play a little bit, and I want to do a little quick warm-up band, just like 20-minute set or something, do some like SOD kind of stuff. And I'm like, fucking A, I can do that. So we started this band, Sergeant Rock, which was basically the opener for Ill Noise. He played in both bands, and let him warm up or whatever. And it's better, if you're booking a show with some Jamoke in St. Louis or something, and you've got two bands that can make the trip instead of one. Right. It's like, hey, you get two bands and you don't
bands for the price of one.
That's right. And then a lot of bands did this back then too. They would have some of them would be in another band, and they would say, hey, we're coming all the way from Alabama. We got this other band with us too. Great. We'll put another band on the bill. It's awesome.
Okay.
And it was a common thing. It was a really good idea. So yeah, so he got some guy that he worked with at Venture. You remember Venture? I don't think there's any more Venture stores, and he was not a great drummer, but he could do this, and that's all we needed. So we had a couple beers. We wrote and rehearsed as we went, about 13 or 14 songs, ran through them once. Second time we ran through it, I recorded it, and it was a demo.
That was your demo. So what was the lifespan of the band? Like just a short...
Well, let's see. Our first show as Impetigo was July 31st, and Sergeant Rock was February of the same year. So about 5 months.
5 months? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool to see that thing, that like a piece of history, like a page from a history book, you know what I mean? Where you have these pieces that you just recorded at the time.
That's right.
You probably never thought like, oh, this is going to be our demo, You're just like, this is the tape I'm going to listen to after.
Well, we didn't have any money. So it's like, okay, and Jimmy wrote most of the stuff, but I helped out. And then after we recorded the demo, we wrote a few more songs that I had more to do with. And he was actually the singer originally, but then he didn't want to sing anymore. So I started singing.
Is this where you got your feet wet with kind of doing the whole, like, say Xeroxing and tape dubbing and mail, or that came a little earlier?
The demo. Yeah, I had tried to help some people distribute their demos locally and stuff. Okay. So I had the tape covers and dubbing and all that kind of stuff. But this was for me. Yes. This is the first time I actually had a band that I was trying to get together, or any part of, that actually had some product.
Right.
And it was just because I hit record on the tape deck, and I actually literally took out the tape and said, hey guys, we have a demo. And they were what? And I said, watch this. And I went home, drew the cover, made a bunch of ads. And I said, see, look, Jimmy, I send out about 20 or 30 letters and packages a day. And I'm going to put a bunch of these ads in here. And I said, in about 2 or 3 months, people are going to start sending me $2 for this demo. And he was like, no, I don't get it. And then next thing you know, hey, here's $2. I want a copy of the Sergeant. I have a money order around here somewhere. It's the first money order I got. It's a money order for $2. And I'm like, and it was just it
was such a unique time, like that whole writing to people.
Yeah. And then,
it was cheap.
And like I say, when and I was doing the zine, and I was drawing stuff for bands, so it made sense.
Right.
And then when Sergeant Rock fizzled out, I just took the songs from Sergeant Rock that I had contributed to the most, or written outright, and we used them as the first Impetigo songs. So.
Right. What do you think? I mean, this is a very general question, but what do you find that is like the pinnacle of Impetigo, like musically, or
the best thing we ever did?
Yeah.
Well, Horror of the Zombies, and only because I had intended it to be that way.
Yeah, it was because the concepts, the covers, the music had increased so well.
Yeah, Horror of the Zombies I overthought it all the way. I mean, we we recorded an EP at the guy's studio just to see if this was the place where we wanted to record it.
Right.
All the songs were kind of more or less written in the order in which they appear on the album.
Okay.
I changed around some because I had a thematic thing going. I said that like Ultimo was my Mothers of Invention Freak Out, right? It was my version of Freak Out. Whore the Zombies was my version of You Are What You Is, another Zappa record, right? Each side has a thing going on it. And this was on, so it's like side A starts with with mass murder, necrophilia,
right?
And then you get into some cannibal, back to the necrophilia, back to the zombies. It kind of goes. Right. There's a thing there, and there's a flow. I say the You Are What You Is with a joke because I made the freak out thing, but I mean, like I said, I was heavily influenced by Zappa and the way he did stuff, and this is how I wanted.
So you really had it mapped out, the ideas.
I had finally figured it out. Yeah, instead of trying to do the crazy stuff, this is the conceptual continuity is what I was going for. I wanted this to be our empire. Like Queensryche,
right. How much influence did the other band members have in these concepts? Were you, because you seem like you conceptually drew a lot of the covers, obviously.
I could drag them in whenever I could. And whenever they had an idea that I thought was worth using, whether they intended for it to be an idea or not, I always used it. Like the riff for Bitch Death Teenage Mucus Monster from Hell, for example. That was one time we went over to dance for practice, and he had my bass, and he was just farting around on it. He went ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, and I was like, I'm going to use that.
Right.
And Mark, me and Mark are sitting around and watching a movie or whatever, and it's a cannibal movie, and the guy's eating fish, and Mark just kind of says, it's our Beavis and Butthead stuff, and Mark just says, I like to eat pussy, I like to eat fish, and I'm like, I'm using that.
Oh wait, you have that drum beat where it's like sounds like a cannibal drum beat kind of.
Yeah, that was, and Scott, Wizard of Gore was based on a riff that Scott brought to me. He's like, "Hey, I've got a song idea." I said, "Hey, I want to hear it," and he had this, and I'm like, "This is really cool. Let's do this," and we kind of finished it together. And Dan had actually a great idea for a song that we never did, called Color Me Blood Red. He actually wrote the lyrics, and they were actually really good, but we never got to do anything with it because we had split up by the time we got around to it. Yeah. But and Mark, anytime they had something input, I was ready. And sometimes, like I said, they may have been doing something and didn't know it was going to be used, but I said, "Hey, let's do this."
But, like, hey, that riff you were playing in your room that day.
Yeah, I did the most of that. But
the curating, you were the curator.
Yeah, I never didn't let them participate, but they.
No, I understand that.
Mark kind of preferred it that way. Mark kept me honest on stuff like, "Hey, what about this?" And he'd go, and I don't know, okay, Mark kept me honest on stuff. If I brought something to him and he was like, "Oh, fuck yeah," then I'm like, "Okay, we're on the right track."
And in the early days too, I mean, obviously this had to be organized by Wild Rags, I'm assuming, which was the show. So you guys played in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, this was all Richard, and he. I don't know if you know the guys from Ray from Thrash Corner and Rafael Becerro. They're good friends. They were talking to Richard.
Just seen them.
They're like, "Hey, we got to get this shit together. We got to do a show down here."
It's a little more rare for a band to have gone to Puerto Rico to play a show. So
that's right. They did not have a whole lot of bands from outside the island showing up there. And Richard was like, "Oh, this is a great idea," because Ray had his little record store, and he had all the tapes, and he carried a lot of Wild Rag stuff, and it did well there. And that was one of the coolest things I ever did was go down there.
Yeah, talk to me about Puerto Rico in general and playing with Nuclear Death.
Yeah, the weather was horrible. We were supposed to play in a baseball stadium, and that was pretty impressive. but it was the monsoon season, and we had to play in the basement of the baseball stadium. And Nuclear Death were really cool to hang out, though. We had a good time without getting arrested, and that's all that matters. So, and it was also Richard that got us on not one but 2 Milwaukee Metal Fests. He was really he was a fantastic support of the band, and it was also Richard, as you know, who got us. I think he was asked about it, but it was Richard who took care of getting us to Rhode Island, for the Death Fest up there.
Yeah, I met Richard at the Milwaukee Metal Fest in 1991, actually, or 2. Richard, I'm not sure.
That was all him. He flew us out there, and we stayed at Fleet's place.
Yes, indeed. There's an old photo too.
Yeah, there he is
with your drummer and Fleet
was
there.
We were at New Bedford. Remember that?
Yes. So there was that show in New Bedford with the. I was trying. Somebody had the flyer of that. There was actually a flyer of that, which I had never seen.
I've never seen it.
I've seen it once on my podcast. So they had a fucking swing in the middle of the peg party, and you guys were playing, and there was people. There was like 4 people on the swing going back and forth, and
it was nuts,
like cannonballing, like a mosh pit.
Yeah, Mortal Decay and Head Rot played too, right?
Yeah, that was almost a more incredible show than the Fleet's Fresh the Freaks.
It was great because I didn't even know, and we're like I think we're on the plane, or we're going to airport. And Mark's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna stop by this thing the night before and kind of hang out, play a little warm up." And I'm like, "I'm all for it." Right. And
that was an incredible show, man.
Yeah, we almost died several times. If you ever rode with Jim Fleet behind the wheel, you're amongst the living for sure.
I had, and I mean, I was with you. I picked you guys up with Fleet at the airport, and then afterwards, it was scary, man. I mean, he was a scary driver, dude.
But it was like I think there was around about 150 people there at that show, if I remember it.
Yeah,
and there was food.
There was like beer in like there was a keg party, and it was like $3 or $5 or whatever it was, and it was something about that swing aspect though that was the most incredible. And wasn't that the night that you had stuffed all the shit in your mouth or whatever like that, or that was just at the fest? I don't really remember.
We did that. There's pictures from that show, and we all have the blood. So yeah, we did. Right. We started off with the blood and everything. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was there were no stage lights. It was basically just a couple of vapors in the warehouse and the PA and shit, and that was it. But it was
it was just a practice place for Moral Decay.
Yep. It was great.
Time.
It was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. And then staying at Jim Fleet's house, and obviously there was the Fleet's Fest of Freaks, which was let's bring up the ad for it here. Which was really incredible at the time, because there wasn't too many death fests, let's call it,
I know there wasn't. There was they did one in Michigan a couple years, and then the Day of Death is the most popular, well-known one, I think. But no, there wasn't. And Fleet did this a couple times.
Yes, he did.
And Repulsion didn't play.
That's correct. Yes,
which was too bad. But this was an amazing show. I mean, look at those bands.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, the Rochevore, Head Rot, Phlegm, Incantation, Deceased, Impetigo,
Embalmer, and Deceased. It was amazing. And at
Future Fact,
I actually have a soundboard of that Phlegm show, and it was just it was outrageous. It was
Is this from that show? This was from that show?
Yes, that is from that show. Yep. And that's someone stole my shirt. That's my Impaled Nazarene shirt.
Yeah, it was probably Fleet's little brother.
I had puke all over it, and then I took it off to put a different shirt on. I turned around, and it was gone. That's the last time I ever saw that shirt.
A pretty psychotic photo there, Yeah. What we haven't done is we haven't talked to the what do you call it here at all. We should probably maybe talk to some of our death metal podcasts watchers here. Do you guys, as watchers, I have a few more photos to show, but let me see. Let me just turn off this thing. Does anyone in the chat have any questions that they would like to ask Stevo, the master? I know we obviously covered quite a bit of stuff here, as I normally would, but is there anybody here that would like to ask questions of Stevo? And then you bastards stole Stevo's shirt. Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was at this show your shirt got stolen, not the Milwaukee Metal Fest or whatever?
Right. It was at the Rhode Island Fest. Yep.
It figures. It had to be Fleet's little brother. He stole my Rochefort shirt at the same show.
Is that right? Okay.
Well, I stuffed it into Fleet's van under the seat, and then I went back for it, and it was gone. And then actually I seen it in Fleet's closet. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, Jim, you stole it!" You know, he's like, "No, that's mine." And I was trying to steal it out of his room. I was like, "I know this."
That was the Impaled Nazarene that Micah himself had given me too. That was the one who was upset. And I've never seen that shirt before or since then either.
Okay, so, here we go. Right. Brad coming with the first question: is there going to be an Impetigo 7-inch on North Street Records?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. I haven't. I told him I'd get him something here by this time. And this shit's been going on at work, and I haven't been able to give it the attention I deserve. But yes, there will be a 7-inch on North Street Records.
Okay, so Evan Williams asking, any recent artwork, Stevo?
No, not really. I don't. I don't really draw anymore. It's a little bit. I got some arthritis, and I kind of lost it. The last thing I actually drew was the cover for Lincoln Lovelock's Illinois.
Okay, I remember that.
CD. Another band I worship. And
here's another question. Travis Patrick asks, how did you end up working with Francisco of ETD?
Positive Pluto is one of my best buddies. I think it was back when I was on Facebook, and he had I was trading a lot with Alan Moses at the time, who's also gone.
Right.
Alan was one of my best friends in the whole world. And Alan said, "Hey, this guy from Texas, his band is really good." And he sent me some HRA, and I got a hold of this dude, and we just started yakking. And Francisco's, he has one of my best buddies. We baseball fan, and he sent me something he was working on with Matt a few years ago. And he said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I actually took and I recorded some vocals over it and sent it back to him. This is what I think about it. And he was like, "Whoa, hey, that's pretty cool." So they went ahead and recorded a bunch of other songs just on a rehearsal boombox and sent them to me. And I did the vocals, and that was the Intolerable Noise Orchestra demo. We're working on another one, but no spoilers. I'm not going to tell you what it's
Which would be this, right?
That's Intolerable. That's the cover of the Fresh Meat for the Grinder. Yeah, we released it as a demo, and Headsplit put it out. And
I like the name.
Yeah, it turned out really good. It turned out great, actually. I love it. It's a real old-timey grind core sounding thing, and there are no lyrics. And I pay more attention to song titles than anything. I guess it's I got away from lyrics a long time ago. The band I'm in now, called Then We Died, there are no lyrics there either. So.
Okay, here's another question. Whatever happened to the soundboard recording of your show? I'm assuming, which show would you be talking about? I'm assuming it would be the Rhode Island. I think that was
I got a copy of that.
Yeah, that was definitely put out or put together.
That's on the that was actually
bonus tracks on one of your CDs.
I have a really cool bootleg that someone made that I got a copy of. And it's fantastic cover. It's just great. And one of the coolest things is when these bootlegs come out, they used to send them to me pretty regularly. Like some guy's like, hey, look, I released your album in Poland, and he sends me copies of it. I'm like, fucking A, that's great. I appreciate it.
So maybe that goes to this question too. I'm curious if Stevo has hung on to Impetigo artifacts over the years, as well as other music stuff collection.
Oh yeah, I have Ginger, my original bass. I still have my Rickenbacker. I got drum heads busted by Dan Malin.
Okay.
I still have my Gibson SG laying around here. Yeah, I the only thing I don't have is any of my original album cover art, which Mark sold all that. So
gotcha.
Which is
Here we
fine.
go.
He needed the money. So
did Impetigo ever do a concert in Arizona, Stevo?
No, we didn't. We played in Illinois, Indiana, Milwaukee Metal Fest, and Chicago,
Rhode Island and Puerto Rico. That's it, right?
Puerto Rico. That's it. We were going to play in California. I think the guys from Mine Rock and Morgia were trying to get us to go out and play California. Rich was going to help that out. That was right before we split up. So.
Here's another question coming from my friend from Torture Rack. Is Dan still playing drums?
I'm not sure if he is. When we did the reunion show, almost 20 years ago,
right?
When we did the reunion show, Dan was had just moved into a house and was building a room that was soundproof, so he could play drums again. And to me, it sounded like he had been playing.
Drummer, man.
Because Dan did some work after we split up, a band he called Badger Boys.
Okay.
And he recorded an album at Rubel's studio with Tom Kirk, who played bass in Church of Misery with me. And it sounded pretty good. He's woo musician.
He's incredible.
Above my head. But I don't really think he's doing any of that today.
Stevo, what were your inspirations when needing to come up with lyrics?
Well, like I say, the horror movies, or horror movies in my head. Big William Blake fan, Edgar Allan Poe. As far as the way I wrote the lyrics, I was always trying to write like William Blake, I guess.
Okay.
But I don't know. Sometimes I'd be, taking a shower, taking a shit, or driving, and an idea would come into my head. Like, I work for the street cleaner, for example.
Yes,
didn't come immediately after watching Necromantic, but the riff. I'm driving in my car, and I used to have a bunch of pieces of paper. I wrote down the riff in my language on a cigarette cartons I had in the car. And then when I went home and played it, the first thing that popped in my head was I work for the street cleaner, like Joe's street cleaning agency from Necromantic. So it kind of has
it's amazing what the car will do with that little writing while you're still driving. You're like, oh shit, I got a good idea right now.
I know. And it's like, I actually, and then for a while I brought a tape recorder in the car with me wherever I go in case so I didn't have to do that again. But then I didn't get any ideas until I didn't have the tape recorder. So
there you go.
I just, I influences sometimes for a movie I watch, or sometimes an idea for a movie in my head, just pops up, whatever. It's pretty good. I mean, Defiling the Grave was, I wrote that in about 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, this would be good. That kind of, Mortician repulsion worship there.
Amazing chorus on there,
Yeah. The grave, Jeff.
Has Stevo ever sang the national anthem at a baseball game?
No, I haven't. I was asked to do a first pitch once, and I had to turn him down.
Okay.
But no, I haven't.
Here's a great question, actually, from Jeff. 3 horrors you love that aren't super well known.
Like movies?
Yeah.
Okay, so Disciple of Death. It's not well known at all. I was mentioning.
No, it's pretty obscure TV movie.
Yeah, that is a must see. I really like Non Ho Sono, Argento's movie.
Okay.
Also known as Sleepless. I'm a huge fan of that movie. I think it's wonderful. Every time I watch it, I notice something new, and I like the pace. I like Max von Sydow's character. I like the whole it really is kind of a throwback.
I'm gonna have to go back to that one because I think it went over my head when I watched it the first time.
Yeah, it's a throwback Giallo thing. It's like all the.
I liked Fatal Frames, and they panned that one, but I really like that one a lot. Fatal Frames.
I like Father's Day. I don't know if that's really a horror movie or not, but I really like that show. Trying to think of one more here. One more under the radar that nobody's ever really heard of.
Yeah, we don't talk about normally because I mean you know.
I mentioned it earlier. The Boogans. The Boogans is so good. Without Warning. There you go. There's
Without Warning with the flying pancakes.
Warning. Yeah, flying pancakes. The Boogans is outstanding.
All right, here we go. So, what were your to-go writers or ideas coming with lyrics? I think he said that was definitely addressed.
Yeah, I like the way William Blake wrote,
I guess because labels are on the lookout for Impetigo.
Oh, okay. Well, do I have any? I have copies of just about everything I've put out.
What is your favorite werewolf movie, Stevo?
My favorite werewolf movie has got to be...
Interesting. Good question. Thank you, Zachary.
Yeah. I like The Howling. How's
Howling
that sound?
1, I'm assuming.
Yes. I like The Howling. I thought I didn't like it the first time I watched it, but then the second time I'm watching it, I'm like, this is really cool. I like the crazy guy aspect of it, and give you a piece of my mind. That stuck with me. I like.
Okay, Bob Kelly, what a great question. What bands are you into today, Stevo?
As far as like death metal and this kind of stuff is concerned, I love Faith Extractor, Sewage Grinder are great. I'm Depigus. I can't say enough about Depigus.
Depigus, yes.
They're so amazing. I really like Family Garden. That's a band you should check out. It's a guy that was in Nauseator with my buddy Matt, who's in Coffin Dust. They're great. Noisem are one of my favorite bands. Unfortunately, they've split up, but Sebastian's in a new band, Mortuaria.
Oh, sure.
Check it out. Oh my gosh, so many. Mulder are great, of course. Cardiac Arrest are gods.
Shout out to Mulder. Cardiac Arrest and Mulder.
I like Hemorrhoid. ETD are amazing. I love Francisco's stuff, and he's really hit the nail on the head there. VHS are also one of my favorite bands of all time. I really enjoy everything they do.
What was the recording that Francisco alluded to? That he said he has some recording, an Impetigo unreleased thing or something? What's that reference about?
Yeah, we may be working on something there that will be revealed when the
to be revealed.
That's right.
Okay.
I mean, I love that shit. I just right now I'm listening to a lot of Depigus and I love it. So.
Is Stevo or Dan the president of the Bow Wow Wow Fail Club?
Pretty much, yeah.
Go to the Dan Cubs.
Go Cubs. There you go.
Dan and I forever.
Bow Wow Wow, and Bow Wow Wow is a big influence in Dan's drum work. If those of you are familiar with,
I believe it,
Barbarossa, the Burundi beat. So,
I want to hear about the first show and how it was perceived and where it was. Walk us through it.
Well, we kind of talked about that. It was at Peoria's Juice Bar. We were playing with Naked Hippie and Stevie Stiletto and the Switchblades. Oh, and Smoldering Remains played too. They were friends of ours. One of the guys was in it was in Leviathan, which Ty Smith was the drummer for Leviathan, who Poison Planet zine.
Yes, Ty.
Yeah, Ty's dead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ty's gone.
I've seen some old Smoldering Remains and Poison Planet flyers when I was looking through my stuff.
The bass player Marty of Smoldering Remains was Marty. He was in Leviathan, and the guitar player took pictures. I mean, he took a lot of pictures of us and stuff. I mean, we were all good friends. But the first show, we were not very well liked. It's fine. We played about 15 minutes. Everybody got the biggest kick out of the We Are 138 cover. That's all I can say.
Stevo, what was your favorite format back then? VHS or Laserdisc?
My favorite was VHS. Mark was a Laserdisc guy. So I like VHS because I could copy it. I could make it.
The laser discs were strange.
That argument doesn't hold up. I like records better than tapes, right? But VHS was I enjoyed it. I wish I could find a couple of VHS players around here. I wish I knew how to fix them because I've got 10 of them.
I know I have 6 of them here. Who was
Vita
better,
Blue
Catfish Hunter or Vita Blue?
I gotta go with Vita Blue, man. He was I think he was probably more intimidating than Bob Gibson.
What was Stevo in good contact with Killjoy from Necrophagia?
Mark was tighter with Killjoy than I was. I had written to him a few times way back in the day, but that was around Season of the Dead time. Of course, I had all his demos, and I was a big fan. And
nice.
But Mark was in contact with him in later years.
Here we go. Richard Santos wants to know: are you a John Waters fan?
Fuck yeah! I love John Waters. Pink Flamingos is a classic. There was a story about Britney Spears' house is covered in dog poop, and when I heard that, the first thing I thought is, "Oh, Babs would love this place." And then someone, the Vine page on Instagram, actually posted a meme with Babs' picture on it, and I thought that was great. I love John Waters stuff. I even like Crybaby. I think Crybaby is got its merits, but Desperate Living is probably my favorite John Waters movie.
Here's a good one. How's it going, Austin? It's nice to talk with you. Love the band. What are your thoughts on the film House of the Devil? I'm not a huge fan of horror, but this one got my attention.
House of the Devil. I'm not familiar with that one. Maybe under a different name.
Yeah, some of these were named so many different things, right?
I want to say, is it the movie from 1986 or 2009?
I thought that was like from the 70s, A House of the Devil, wasn't it? In the castle. And so here's another question. Andrew Gabriel, I'm back. I went and go listen to the 2 regurgitation demos. I can't believe I didn't get them sooner.
Yeah, regurgitation is just fantastic. And FOAD did a special edition reissue of the regurgitation stuff that you should. I think they still have it available, so you should definitely pick that up. If we're talking about House of the Devil that's made in 2009, come on, guys, I don't watch new movies.
Listen, so JG wanted to know, what was your bass rig back in the day? Also, this is a bass player asking another bass player.
That's right. So I was mostly associated with my Rickenbacker 4001. It's my pride and joy. And I had an Ampeg, I want to say, I don't remember the exact model. It was manufactured in 1968, and it had 2 14-inch speakers, and it weighed about 1,400 pounds.
Very cool. All these Stevo,
it was a
Fulci, or Argento.
Okay.
That's a tough one.
I don't want to say both because that ain't right. And I don't want to say, well, sometimes you feel like Argento, sometimes you feel like Fulci. But as far as what pulls on my heartstrings, it's Fulci.
Yes, same here.
Yeah.
I think he made more,
food, right?
You know,
Fulci's comfort food.
He's got his westerns, you know. He got the western, even. He's got the crime movies,
sorcery movies. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got ghosts, some ghost shit.
Argento is fine dining.
Yes.
Fulci's just comfort food. It's just like
New York Ripper, you know.
Yep.
So thank you for everybody asking cool questions. Also, I think we have a picture of you playing that old bass in here somewhere. There's a couple photos I didn't show too. Yeah, I wanted to talk actually quickly about the here's the photo with the bass.
Oh yeah, that's Rhode Island Death Fest, and that is the bass, and there's a T-shirt.
I don't know why I never get to see these fucking photos.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, that's 4,000. I still have that. It's got 2 outputs. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of machinery.
Okay, and then let me see here. We had I wanted to ask you about the band photos with the cross.
Yes, that's a cemetery near where I used to live on Circle Avenue. I think it's called St. Michael's Cemetery. Yep.
Okay. So the band, like, this was these were taken during like right previous to the record.
Yep. 1991, probably the fall of 1991.
Why they're not displaying for me the photos, but
okay,
you see them now, right?
Yeah, Mark and I, Mark lived in Singapore in 2002, and I went and visited him, and we went to Japan together. And so you've got Takashi from Necrophile and Anatomia to my right, and that's his wife. Can't remember the dude who's doing the horns name. That guy's Naru from CSSO. That's Mirai Kawashima from Psy, and that is Yasuyuki from Abigail.
There you go. And the whole star Japanese.
Yep, we are drinking heavily and eating sushi at a Momiya in Kabukicho.
Yeah, and your thoughts about like the Orient and their films as well.
Yeah, I love Japanese horror films. The Ring and the Grudge. Obviously, that's really good stuff. I'm a big fan of some of the older stuff too, like Jigoku is an amazing movie. The 60s and 70s horror and exploitation from Japan is some of my favorite stuff. Female Scorpion series, obviously. They had some twisted shit back then too.
Definitely, dude.
I'm more of a fan of the older stuff than the newer stuff, just like what we're going through now.
Yeah, same here. And then obviously the whole the Singapore Thai kind of what is that?
Eating Air is a really interesting movie. It's a old Singapore movie film. Deserves a look.
Or the one with what is that? The flying head and it comes in, it goes between the girl's legs. I can't remember the name of the movie.
Crazy stuff. Thai movies are wacky.
Yeah, and as are their posters too.
Room Talak 609 is what a good one. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, Man Behind the Sun.
Well, that's not real though. I mean, I remember we used to, a lot of Dark Whispers. It's like, oh, this is an actual movie. No, it's actually not. But yeah, I like
yeah.
But there was kind of like it was actually a snuff film. No, it isn't. It's
any other countries that might have put out stuff? Spain or some kind of thing we haven't spoke on.
I'm not really a fan of French films. I like Australian films a lot. Probably my favorite movie of all time, if it wasn't Goodfellas, is Chopper. That's not really a horror movie, but it's I do like Australian films quite a bit. There's a whole Ozploitation. You know what I mean? Ozploitation. Yeah, I can't say it, but there's a whole genre there that I'm trying to get more into, but without spending a bunch of money. But
understandable.
Yeah,
someone's asking here,
what trash cinema is great.
What was Stevo's best last film he watched? Maybe a recommendation.
Best last movie I watched. See, I just watched the same old fucking movies over and over again.
Same here.
I watched. I did watch Dress to Kill the other night. That's what brought me to that. If you can see Chopper and you haven't seen Chopper yet, you gotta see it. I love that movie. Mark and I watched it together in Singapore, and it's just maybe it's because I'm being nostalgic. We had such a good time there, but the best I don't really watch new horror films all that much. I mean, it was a reach for me to even check out Father's Day. It was recommended to me.
Right.
And of course, Mark turned me on to Hobo with a Shotgun, which is also.
Oh yeah, that was a cool one.
Yeah,
that was cool.
I'm sorry.
What about the trauma films? Did they have any kind of bump on you guys?
Yeah, we were both fans of Toxic Avenger and Class of Nukem High, very much so. And Bloodsucking Freaks is really a trauma movie. I think they had something to do with its reissue many years ago, but
they did the distribution later in life.
Yeah.
Next of Kin is fantastic. What's up, Ian?
Okay.
My favorite Australian movie in 1982, Next of Kin. There you go.
All right, I'm jotting it down.
I know. I have to rewatch this afterwards and remember, like, you know what? Maybe I need to check that one out, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we covered a lot of stuff here. What do you think, Stevo? We covered, most of your discography
before I got to plug my new band, okay?
Do it to it.
It's not really a band. We're not playing or anything.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Surgical. We didn't talk about a couple other things.
I got a new project. Then We Died. We released an EP on CDN Records.
Okay.
It's kind of cool. It started out with a discussion I had with my buddy here, Jerry, at a Deicide show, I think it was, or was it? No, it wasn't. It was later. And I told him, I said, I want to, I liked his guitar playing, and I said, you and I should do something kind of like Assuck and Impaled Nazarene walk into a bar and start beating the shit out of each other. Sounds like that. And Jerry actually understands what I'm talking about. And then he just hit me up like 10 years later and said, hey, if you're interested. And I was like, really? And it's pretty cool because he got Mike May from Abominant and to play bass, and he got Jim from Abominant to play drums. And we recorded this EP, and I think it turned out really good. And if you like anything I've ever done, I think you'll get a kick out of it, especially the vocals. So check it out. Then We Died. We are working on a follow-up release sometime. Jerry's wife just had their second child a couple months ago, so he's, we're not in any hurry. So
yeah, we didn't talk to this too. What about the stage antic with the puking and the spitting up blood and all that stuff? You got any antidotes you can give us on that?
Well, that was kind of one of the things that started getting frustrating later on. Is we wanted to up our stage game in that respect, and it was a problem because it was too expensive to do so. Mark and I did the blood thing, spitting blood or wiping blood on us originally, and that was fun and that was great. And then we'd buy some fishing worms, and put them in a cup with fake blood, and I'd drink it, put it in my mouth, and we do maggots, and I'd spit them all everybody.
Right.
That was fun. The puking thing almost happened accidentally, and I was infamous around town for being able to vomit on command. I mean, I could just, it's fun at parties, and I can't remember first time I did it or why, but it was great, man. Everyone went nuts when I puked. So I just started doing it during the crazy part of, we'd always play Red Wigglers last.
Right.
And I was doing it during the crazy psychedelic, something weird part of Red Wigglers. And it was just a hit. It was great, man. Jeff Greslin loved it. He would write me letters and say, hey, Stevo, my vomit flows freely on command. How you doing? He just thought that was the greatest thing in the world, man.
Yeah, that was I had seen that at the Rhode Island Fest, and I was like, but I read later or heard in an interview that you hadn't actually tried to puke. You puked and then you puked again or something.
Yeah, it was like I said, the first time I did it, it was just completely it was just a, hey, I think I could puke right now, and I did it, and it was beautiful.
Yes.
It was just great. That's one of the favorite pictures of me is at the Metal Fest with the phlegm shirt on, and the little just pukes just
yes, and that
was great.
That photograph, is kind of epic, and not only that, you guys. There's just there's so much about like the band itself just being kind of like like normal guys in horror movie shirts, you know what I mean?
All we do, just
nothing spectacular, you know what I mean? Just here's the band. They're just a normal, a couple dudes,
one guy taking at the head shop there.
One guy pukes on command, you know what I mean?
There you go.
They play movies. I mean, they play disgusting music, you know what I mean?
We watch movies and play music that
I didn't ask about this one.
Yeah, that's at the Singapore Zoo when I was with Mark. That's a huge fucking snake.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this was definitely an aspect of the, like what I would consider the stage show. I guess this was at the reunion version?
Yep, that was the reunion show.
Right.
Yep.
And you guys came back just for one particular reunion show only. That's Central Illinois Metal Fest.
Yep.
I'm sure people have asked up and down, like, do you think there ever will be another Impetigo show?
No, there won't.
No,
that's it. Nah, Mark is Mark's hanging in there. He's doing okay, but he's he's not really playing anymore, and I'm too far away, and I got way too much going on here, and
understandable.
It's
well, I think it's kind of cool when a band makes their mark and then says we're done too. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I think about it. It would be fun, because even with this new band I'm in, we've kind of talked about, do we play a live show? How does that work? It's just a lot of, we don't really practice or anything, so it's kind of hard to find the time for all of us. And I mean, I'm getting along in years, and I mean, I'll be 60. I'll be 60 in a year or two, and and I'll be done with social media and stuff by that time, and I'm just trying to trying to make my nut, have enough money to retire.
Yeah, and I mean, you've picked up new hobbies over the years, obviously. You know what I mean, beyond music.
Yeah,
it's obviously raising family and living.
My kids both live in town. They're both adults and they live in town, and I spend quite a bit of time hanging out with them, and it's my wife and I. We do what we can, have a good time without blowing a bunch of cash. That's just what we do.
And a big baseball enthusiast now.
That's right. That's my therapist. I go to every other home game here, and pretty soon I'll go to all of them. It's just my
helps me chocolate milk help vomiting on command. Somebody asked.
No, but it does. No, but it does give the vomit a nice color and a consistency. It makes it meatier, if you will. This is better than just puking water, because it's without eating a bunch of stuff. I mean, it was on my rider at the reunion show. I said,
somebody asking who or what nailed the coffin on the band.
It was not really. Nobody really did that. It was just Mark and I saying, in order to take this to the next level, better stage show. We were on the phone with a guy who was going to make us a cannibal, like
I could see like a musical for you guys.
Bodies. We were going to have dead bodies and stuff. We were, and then we were going to tour, and then everything that we had to do to take it to the next level took a lot more time and money than
understandable
we had available at the time. And we're just kind of like, okay, so are we doing this for fun? Or are we doing this to make money?
Yes, I understand.
And we just said, we got so much going on here, and
keep it fun. I mean, you guys did your thing while it was fun, basically. Also
we were, I guess after War of the Zombies, I really can't say that was mission accomplished. I wanted that to be the album that I was going to be remembered for, and I certainly consider it to be turned out as good as it could have.
Definitely.
And I don't have any regrets.
And the band, I mean, obviously has worldwide releases, in Europe and Germany and Czech Republic, and US has, over time, between
cool, someone sends me a YouTube video of some guy celebrating his 25th birthday in a bar or something or whatever, and they're playing Disorganized.
Right.
And he's drunk and he's got his shirt off and he's he's singing the song and doing all the voices. And I'm like, what the hell, man? That's the coolest thing ever. I wrote that, I just came up with this idea for a song, and you're, 30 years later, some guy's drunk and losing his mind.
Epic party song.
Someone's recording it, it's just, that's just great. I mean, that's fine.
Well, you guys will always go down in history. I mean, as one of the like forefathers of a kind of like a movement. You know what I mean? Because as you mentioned earlier, there wasn't really many bands doing like the horror thing.
And our reunion show came out better, and we sounded better at our reunion show than we ever did while we were together. I don't know if I could do that again, just based on that. But it's always good to go out on a strong note, and I think we did.
So, I think. Oh yes, definitely. And then also, I want to thank you for coming on here to talk about it, because the reason I'm doing the interview thing is because like I want there to be some kind of a prosperity of the people that were involved making good music at their time, and there to be like a good discussion about it that opens up different chambers about either the movies you watch to influence you, or talk about like the gear or the recordings or the atmosphere at the time, or just little things like that. I think that it's nice to come on Death Metal Podcast with not only everyone here that is in the chat who stayed here like for hours listening to us, but it's for you to come on. I really appreciate you, Stevo, and Impetigo was a big thing for me, and just going over just your thank list alone was like a fucking holy fuck, dude. Like, this guy's connected.
We had to coordinate that. It's like, okay, no, do we got duplicates? Mark, you thank these guys, I thank them too. Well, we got to combine.
Yeah, and it was written like so tiny that you had to like, and you're like, oh my god, these guys are connected with so many motherfuckers, And I mean, sure, a lot of these things just went through the ages, through the tape trading era, then on towards, I mean, well, that thank list was pre-internet, but it was cool. That was where you picked out.
Thanks to everybody. You know who you are.
Well, you know what? That's when you picked out band names from the thank list and you looked for them. You know what I mean? To say like, who's this? You know what I mean? Yep, so thank you for coming on to talk. I felt like I wanted to make a very comprehensive Impetigo interview, and I think we achieved that. What do you think?
I think we did. We talked a lot of shit here.
Yes, we did. And then, talking about the different movies, and we had the Doc here. Thank you, Doc, for tuning in and adding to the conversation.
Nice surprise. Good to see you.
And then, just to, and thank you everybody that fucks with Death Metal Podcast, basically, because without you, we would just be talking to each other and there wouldn't be 50 people watching it for the whole fucking show. So,
you're writing letters in the mail. No.
Yeah. I mean,
everybody.
I mean, that the thing you talked about with the televisions and take the television apart and 2 fucking televisions, like that was some next level shit, dude. I mean, even if you left that college, I'm sure those guys were pretty fucking happy afterwards,
Well, they couldn't figure out how to do it without me, so I took my shit and went home.
Yeah, so we're gonna say what's up and thank you to all the people that tuned in: Tactical Billy, Bob Kelly, Laura Squirrel, Corey Raposa, Alexis Morrow, Richard Santos, Luigi, who else here? Jeff Chapman, Daniel Nelson Rebellis. Thank you for all the cool questions. Laura Squirrel, Nate P, Brad from Absconder, Juan H, Sylvester the Gornome, Trivial Zine Royal. Who else? Vacuous Depths, Grindak, Jeff Chapman, Justin Wild, Evan Williams, Riddick Art, Tom Mosher, Nevermore Rules. Who else here? There's so many people, man. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Appreciate it. 5 Shinobi, Death Evocation. So we're going to do more interviews like this in the future. Crawling and Vomits. A lot of people talking about a lot of cool stuff. Disgustor from Head Split. Shane Dupay, Tenebrous Morte, Defiled Graves, Distro, Josh Rodriguez, Aaron Fogg, Andrew Gabriel, James G. Philosopher. Just all you motherfuckers. Anati Cadaveric. I think this is from Finland.
Yep. Or there you go. Cheers. Thanks. Fucking A. You on? No. All right. Good old Roy. All right. Well, cheers, y'all. Stay sick.
Sorry, everybody. I think the stream went dead. So this has been your episode of Death Metal Podcast. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. Cheers to Stevo, and cheers to anyone, the fans of Death Metal Podcast. Appreciate, way to end the show. Thank you, man. Thank you for everybody for tuning in, man. The technical difficulties hit at the end, so